Okay.
I am ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, welcome. Thanks for all of you being here. With that, we'll go around the table here for little self-introductions, and then those of you that are on the Zoom, and then those of you that are on the phone. So I'm Norman Wright, Commission.
Kathy Romer, Commission.
Delwyne Trefz, Commission.
Crystal Rosen, Commission.
Rachel Misnick with the Commission. Wendy Pratt with the Commission.
Brenda Charles with the Commission. Chantal Tappel with the AG's office.
Joe Peterson with the Commission.
Loretta Strickland with the Commission.
Okay, those of you that are on Zoom.
Eric Olson with
Freeman with the Kootenai Shoshone.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Eric, anybody else there, Rob?
Hey there, Rob Sepich from Legislative Services Office.
Good morning. Charity, you want to say hello? No. Thanks. Okay. Is that, anybody else want to say hello there?
Mike Somerville, hi, how are you?
Good, good, Mike. Glad you joined us.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, is there anyone else on the phone now?
Are you talking to me?
Excuse me, I lost the name there.
That was up here.
Oh, okay,
I think that was Charity.
okay. Thanks, Charlie. Okay, with that, then, well, do a roll call of the commissioners.
Chairman Norman Wright,
Here,
Commissioner Kathy Romer,
Here.
Commissioner Eric Olson,
here.
Commissioner Wendy Pratt,
Here.
okay. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for being here. At this time, the next thing on our agenda is partner reports. And do we have one from Mike? Anything you want to say, Mike?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I really don't have any new information because I hope you all received the notice of our 78th annual convention for this fall. If you haven't received that, talk with Benjamin or let me know and I can get you a copy of it. It went out this last week to all the districts and partners. Looks like we'll have a good convention. I think we'll have a lot of opportunity to kind of come back together. Hopefully we don't get shut down again for pandemic reasons, but we're looking forward to it, and I appreciate it. I'd answer any questions if any of you have any.
The only question I got right off the top of my head, Mike, you said that went out this last week?
I believe, or maybe it was the first of this week.
Okay, I haven't seen it come through my inbox yet. Have you,
Okay.
Crystal?
No, sir.
Okay,
So, yeah.
Nobody's gotten it yet, so what you said was good news to us, but we didn't have it first from somewhere else.
I will, I'll follow up, and make sure that gets to everybody. Also, we're looking forward to statewide fall division meetings, and please have your staff or some of you on the commission attend those meetings where it's convenient for you. We look forward to having you and look forward to rubbing shoulders with the districts out in each division.
Thank you, Mike. Do you have any, those dates yet? I've seen Division 6 come out, but I haven't seen anything else.
Division 3 will be the 12th in Payette of October, October 12th in Payette. I'll get you all those division meeting dates and locations and send that in an email to you also.
That'd be great, Mike. Appreciate that.
All right, thanks.
We'll try and make sure we're covered too, okay?
Appreciate you.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And Mike, this is Delwyne, and I did see that flyer that you sent out on your conference when I was at the Snake River Conservation District meeting a couple nights ago. And it really does, it's a really nice program they put together. The speakers that you've got coming in, it's going to be a good conference. So my hat's off to you guys.
Awesome. Yes, we'll get to hear and visit with the chief of NRCS and some others. So it'll be a great meeting. We're looking forward to it. Thanks, Dylan.
Yeah, make sure you get those, get Benjamin to get us those, that information as quick as you can.
I'll do it today.
Thanks, Mike. Well, if you have other questions, Long, you know, you can chime in once in a while. Okay, is there anyone else that wants to add to our partner reports? Do you want to speak up this time, Chantel?
Sure, just real quick, did Commissioner Olson get off the call?
I don't know where.
What was that, Chantel? I didn't catch that.
I couldn't see you, Commissioner Olson, so I wanted to make sure you were on the call still.
Yes.
Just so everyone knows, I think Delwyne sent out an email to everybody, but today is my last day as the attorney for the Soil and Water Conservation Commission. They're in the process of hiring my replacement, so until then, my immediate supervisor, Steve Strack, who's been with the office for 40 years and is experienced in really everything, is going to be taking care of you guys. He's up to date on everything that you have going on right now. And Crystal has his contact information if you all need it, but it's been a pleasure. It's been really great.
Thank you very much, Chantel.
Yes, thank you very much. And
Absolutely.
we wish you well on your future endeavors with the AG's office.
Thank you.
You've been great, Chantel.
Yes, you have been. Most of the time anyway. Okay, I don't want to.
Until you start telling us what.
Like start saying no to stuff.
Yeah. Okay, is there any other people that'd like to speak up this time?
Mr. Chair, while Chantel was speaking, Curtis joined the call.
There it is. You're alive and kicking?
Where's he at?
He's not on video.
Oh,
He's on phone?
No, he's on Zoom.
Okay,
oh, he's not on video. Okay, gotcha.
okay. Curtis, you there?
There he is. You're
There you are.
muted, Curtis.
He's talking, but he's not. He's muted himself. Curtis, we can't hear you. But you can't hear what I'm saying either.
You have to unmute your mic, Curtis. It is. It's not showing for us.
Can you hear me
There it
now?
goes. Yes.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see everyone. And yes, I am alive and kicking. It's good to see everyone again.
All right, anything to say for it yourself?
What's that? Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Anything you'd like to tell us?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I thought.
I know.
Always, there's always a lot to share with you all here this morning. And first of all, a lot of good things are happening. We're hiring a lot of new employees, which I know you already know. We just finished our new employee orientation here yesterday. We had a 2-day new employee orientation where we had over 30 new employees part of that. and all of my support staff. I guess articulating and sharing with all these new employees all the resources that they have available for them. Mr. Boozer was able to join us as well on these this orientation and fill them in on what our priorities are for NRCS, and definitely partners were, you know, mentioned on my behalf to them as well, and the importance of our partnership, working together, getting to know our partners, working with our partners and our customers. Follow-up was mentioned by me, and my expectation of getting out in the field, visiting with our customers, getting to know them, establishing a relationship, getting conservation implemented on the ground. Although we live in a COVID environment right now, and it is still a challenge for us. There's a lot of anxieties and even some feeling of isolation for some of my employees, to be honest with you. Some COVID stress stuff going on where people just are not used to, you know, all the demands that are being put on them in these COVID times of mask wearing, and you can't do this, but you can do that and that. So I'm having a teleconference today at 11:30 this morning. I welcome anybody in this meeting to join me if you want to, and giving just an update that I'm receiving from our COVID commander in national headquarters, which is coming from the White House and the department level on what we can do, what we can't do, and it even affects visitors and partners that are coming into our office as well. They're needing to fill out a form. All visitors and partners that come into our office need to fill out a form. It's a 4-question form. See if I can find that form with the questions that are being asked here. And it just basically says, am I, you know, I am fully vaccinated, I am not fully vaccinated, I have not been vaccinated, or I decline to respond. And those persons who decline to respond or have not been vaccinated and or have not yet fully been vaccinated are going to be required to wear a mask and be tested at least once, maybe twice a week for COVID. So they're making it very uncomfortable for those personnel, I guess, that choose not to be vaccinated. I'll just say, and including visitors and partners are going to have to show us the form that they filled out before entry into our buildings. So it is going to have a little bit of an impact. I know that we are going to receive some pushback. I know it's going to be, this isn't coming from me, unfortunately. I think you all know where I stand. I believe in the vaccination, but I also believe in freedom of choice as well. And in that, so yeah, so that's the things that we're getting from them, and we're going to have to work through this and figure it out and what we can do to continue our operations and business and getting conservation on the ground. So I'm encouraging my staff to get out in the field, and we can fully operate in the fields, just in the office. I would imagine we're going to continue to do a lot more teleworking still, and continue to do that for some time yet. But this administration is really tightening down, you know, the vaccination, non-vaccination part of what we do. So just making you aware of the challenges that we have here that we're facing. But we're still going to get our job done. We're just very persistent and tenacious people. We all are wired that way, where we don't wave the white flag, we get it done. Budget related, let me quickly share on that. Had a good year, very good year on EQIP and CSP. We have the new program coming out called the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, EQIP, CIC, not general, but CIC. It's a hybrid between the CSP, which are the enhancements that are offered through CSP. Those people that are already doing a good job but want to do even a better job is what that program's for, the Conservation Stewardship Program. And then we have the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. So EQIP CIC is going to be a hybrid across I guess, breed of both programs together. And it's going to offer the EQIP rules, however, with the CSP enhancements included into it. So it's already being piloted in 4 states right now. It's really taken off and doing well, a lot of interest in that. So more to come on that. I don't have a lot more information or guidance on that program because it's just being piloted right now. But next meeting you have, I will have some additional information for you to share by that time, since the program is being rolled out October 1st of this coming year. Haying and grazing, drought, we're being as flexible can be around the nesting timeframes, and that we are allowing farmers, and I'm speaking for FSA when I say this is their program, but we are the technical go-to people and supporting as much haying and grazing on CRP lands as we possibly can, and knowing that we're in a drought situation here right now, and we need to be helping our landowners and not standing in their way as much as possible. So that's going on. I did receive $2.1 million here just a week ago to I guess have 3 more water management projects in the state with the drought situations that we're experiencing right now. Not only just what we're experiencing currently, but what could be, the next year, 2 years, 5 years, if we continue in this dry cycle like we're in. It could get pretty bad. So anyhow, we're being proactive instead of reactive on this, and asking for more monies, designing additional water management projects in the state where they're experiencing some severe, it's pretty much all the entire state. We've been getting some rains and here and there, but it's going to take a lot more than that to catch up to where we are today. So just an awareness that we're engaged, we're working together, we're working with our partners on water management projects. Also, wildfires, as you can see, the skies are finally pretty clear today here in Boise, but it's been smoky throughout the state for a number of weeks now, and we continue to address the wildfires in the state by reaching out to those private land customers of ours and assessing their damages. I've set aside over $500,000 right now I have in my budget to assist landowners now as needed, wherever they may need the help, and technical assistance, financial assistance, whatever that be. So that's wildfires. There's a lot more I could talk about, Mr. Chairman, but I think that pretty much hits the high points of what I wanted to share with you all this morning here, and letting you know that, yeah, we're working hard. We're engaged in all the natural disasters that are going on and conditions that are going on. I expect another good budget year this coming next year. I've asked for $38 million in EQIP, which is about $16 million more than we historically received. So I'm hoping to get that money to spread out throughout the local work groups. There are local work groups already meeting and discussing, how and where these monies could be used. And the last thing I'll speak on here this morning is we have introduced 2 additional initiatives in the state here of Idaho, one being the soil erosion initiative. And that's a state pool of money that I've set aside for that to address the soil erosion issues, ephemeral gully erosion issues that we have going on, continue to have going on in the state of Idaho here. It's frankly an embarrassment to our state, and it just shouldn't be happening to the extent that it is happening. And we're not gonna wave the white flag on this. We're going to throw everything at it, and the kitchen sink included. We're going to engage a lot of partners. I ask for your assistance as well and your help in combating this as much as we possibly can. But we have some tremendous wind and ephemeral erosion issues going on in this state that just frankly is unacceptable, and we need to do something about it. So I need all hands on deck to address and to combat these issues that are going on and continue to go on. It isn't the 1930s anymore, and we have the tools and toolbox to get it done. We need to reach out to those people that are maybe not managing their land like they should be, and trying to motivate them, educate them, and find what that influence is to change their culture, that mindset that they have. And I'm going to need a lot of help from people in doing that. I can't do it alone. And then we also have the urban agriculture area that we're focusing on and moving into, doing more in the world of urban agriculture. And we're going to be focusing primarily in the Treasure Valley for now, but that will be extending out to the rest of the state eventually. But we're going to walk before we run with this. And there's going to be an urban conservationist on my staff. We also have an agreement with the American Farmland Trust that is going to be providing some additional assistance and a shared position from them too on the land preservation type of stuff that's going on here. We have a lot of people moving into Idaho and uptaking a lot of prime farmland, agriculture land in the state. And we want to give landowners options to choose from. They don't just need to simply hand over their land to a developer. But there are other options to do out there, like the ASAP Ale easement program. We also have other programs like the high tunnels and community gardens and different things like that this land could be used for. But anyway, we're looking into that. We're working with American Farmland and hopefully we can work with you too in helping us do that. And I'll stop there. If there's any
Chris, you
questions.
don't get off the hook that easy. We have a couple of people who'd like to ask a couple questions from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Curtis. Commissioner Romer, say, when you speak of the urban conservationist, could you elaborate on that just a little bit? You say you're hiring one. Has that been put out for advertisement, and then where might they be located? And
Sure.
Describe what their role and their duties are, and perhaps their training. What would be their background and training required for that position?
No, great question. And I appreciate the question as well. The urban conservationist has not been advertised yet. We're still working on the position description on that. So I'm a little preempt, I guess, and maybe letting you know what this position, but my vision for this position and expectation for this position would be to more so educate our staff, educate our customers, educate our general public on the importance and of what urban agriculture could be. It's not just a greenhouse, putting up a greenhouse or a high tunnel. It's much more than that. We still have food deserts in the state. We have a lot of small acreage farms in the Treasure Valley in particular, people that are moving in with 5, 10, 20 acre lots that frankly don't have a clue what they're doing.
No job description yet, but once you get a job description, then that would describe what is required to fill that position, obviously.
Exactly. And this position will be advertised soon, very soon, I'd say within the next couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be on USA Jobs. And that's a site that we always advertise our positions on. And so any recruitment for this position would be greatly appreciated from you all. If you know somebody that, has a passion for urban agriculture and a background in agriculture, a good communicator is going to be vitally important for this position, because they're going to be out there teaching, training, and just communicating with the general public, but also a lot of classes with the University of Idaho, working really closely with the University of Idaho Extension and American Farmland Trust and other partners.
Well, thank you. A district in my division has been discussing just that thing, in the last couple of years. And so I'm just curious and kind of waiting to see how that plays out and how somebody like that would be available to districts. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Commissioner Pratt has a question for you.
Morning, Curtis.
Good morning.
My question, well, first off, what's CIC, what's that acronym stand for?
So it's conservation, in innovation. I know you were going to ask me that. Somebody was going to ask me that. Too many
That's
acronyms.
okay, we'll get back to that.
There's too many acronyms in our business.
Yeah, that's,
hard
yeah.
to know them all.
Okay, so you said there's 30 new staff. How many more are you looking to hire? And is there a certain emphasis with those new hires? Like, is it going to change what happens when we walk in our local office?
Yeah, you should see a lot more employees in your local office than what you've ever seen before. Where that's going to be a challenge is the space. So we're looking at that. We're looking at our leases right now, and perhaps we may need to solicit for a new building if we don't have enough space in some of these locations. But how that's going to look, 95% of these new positions are in the field that we're bringing on. They're soil conservationist planners, they're civil engineer technicians, they're engineers. We are doubling the number of engineers in our state from 13, actually over double, 13 to 29 engineers in our state that we're going to have here fairly soon. But when you hire new people, they need to be trained. You're not going to get immediate production out of them, so we realize that. So we're still going to be leaning on some of our agreements and partners and stuff like that for engineering assistance and patience, I guess, from our customers as well on some of the designs and that have been waiting out there for a few months that they're still working on. But yeah, we're really excited. This is the direct hiring authority we're looking at bringing on. We were at as low as 118 full-time employees, and I mean that's really low. We were even less than skeleton crew at 118, and it was really hard on our staff, overwhelming and such. But we're at right now, my payroll is right now at about 145 and that I'm paying for, and soon we're going to be up to 172 employees in the next 3-4 months. And the plan is to get up to 176 by this time next year, and eventually 180 employees is my target for Idaho full-time employees here. And again, predominantly field office staff. That's the front line. Those are the worker bees. Those are the people that are field faced with our customers. We have to make sure that we have the resources out there, human resources for our customers out in the field.
Okay.
I got a question. I got a question,
Okay,
Curtis.
go ahead, Eric.
So you said there was $500,000 that you have available for fire-related issues. Do you expect that number to go up with, in the coming months with all the wildfire situation especially in the state of Idaho, with replanting and rebuilding of forest lands?
Yeah, I'm hoping for the best, but I'm not, expecting, I guess, it to just end here either in the situations that we're in. So yes, I would expect that we'll see more fires, and we need to be ready for that. So if I do need additional funding for that, and this is actually, I typically set aside about $250,000, and I've set aside $500,000 right now, and double what I normally set aside. There's also early start waiver requests that producers, customers can send in if they want to get started earlier, and then wait for next year's monies to come to them and reimburse them. We have that option as well.
Okay, thanks, Curtis.
Bet.
Okay, Delwyne has a question, I believe, for you.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. And Curtis, do you want to say a quick word about the status of the MOAs? That's going to come up a little bit later in our meeting, but I thought, well, we have you, it would be valuable to hear where you're at with those.
Yeah. So we continue to see them trickle in. The MOAs, we need to get them signed very, very soon. And I'll just say, and Delwyne being the acting, I'll be reaching out to you, Delwyne, to get your signature on these MOAs, and then I'll sign them and they'll be done. But we have, I'd say right now, about 2/3 of them right now in hand. We still have a couple out there that I am arm wrestling with, I'll just say, and that kind of want their own language, very, very distinctly different than what we're being asked to, and what we agreed to put in there on the MOA when we all sat down and modified the last version, and including some of the language that my grants and agreements and national people are expecting. So we still have a couple out there that I'm visiting with and trying to convince that this isn't anything, there's no financials attached to this MOA. It's really like a gentleman's agreement where you're shaking hands, you're going to work together, one and all, and for the same cause and all that, just like we all have been for 80+ years. We're just extending, we're just continuing that handshake with each other, that we're going to work together. But sometimes people get look into it deeper than what it is, and I get that, but we're close. They're trickling in as these soil and water conservation district boards meet. They are signing them and getting them back to us, and we really need to get them back. I was really hoping to get this done before the annual convention in November. So that's my goal anyway, is that we have them 100% done by then.
Thank you, Curtis.
Hey, Curtis, just two quick questions for you.
Yeah.
One, just before you came on, I believe Mike Somerville made comment that the chief is going to be here in November's conference.
Yeah, so the invitation has been sent to the chief and to Astor Boozer to attend the annual convention coming up. He has accepted with the criteria, I guess, of travel still being restricted right now. So if the convention was this week or next week, you wouldn't see him. So it's all really dependent on the CDC guidance, on the travel restrictions that are in place at that time. But he has accepted with the conditions that we're allowed to travel.
Okay. Well, I hope for all of our sake that he'll be able to come out here, because that means COVID will have died down some. The second question is, I have not heard, and I'm sure you would know, did FSA finally get an executive director hired here in Idaho?
They have not.
Okay.
Neither has RD.
Okay, okay, well, that's that one. Well, thank you very much, Curtis, appreciate it. I hope to see you again,
Thank
not
you.
sitting there on the TV screen either.
Well, yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to getting from behind this desk and actually meeting you all in person too. So thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful day and a good meeting.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Curtis.
Curtis.
Okay,
Thanks, Curtis.
moving on. Next item of business is agenda review. I don't know of any items that we need to talk about at the present time as far as changed anything, so moving on. Item number 4, we just see a new face here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright, Commissioners. So I'm here to give you the district support services update, what we've been doing for the past month. I'm going to start out with the district survey. The fiscal year 21 district survey, and it was provided for you as attachment 1, and you'll see that it was significantly shorter this year than in years past. Listed 2 statements, and then had ample room.
Time out. If you don't mind sitting up here, sometimes the sound doesn't sound very good back there. Sorry, that one's not that important right now.
We'll be able to hear you on the recording better
Oh,
here.
yeah. So this year's survey was shorter. It had 2 statements on it and then provided ample space for districts to provide comments and constructive criticisms. Districts were asked to submit 1 response per district and through board action. The survey was sent out to district staff and supervisors and commission staff on May 14th and had a July 31 deadline. A follow-up reminder was sent out at the 1-month mark on June 28th and to remind them through constant contact. And 40 districts returned surveys this year, so it's pretty remarkable. So we'll go through the results. Statement 1, our board is satisfied with the services and programs provided by the commission over the past fiscal year. As you can see, 31 districts do agree that they are satisfied with the services. 8 are neutral, while 1 disagreed. Statement 2 was our board is satisfied with the effectiveness of the communication received from the commission over the past fiscal year. 35 of the 40 responding agreed of the communication efforts over the last year. 4 districts were neutral and 1 disagreed. So as I mentioned, this year's survey just had a tremendous response rate of 80%. If I let you know how that compares to a couple of previous years, in 2020, 26 of the districts returned surveys for a 52% response. 2019, some responses were anonymous, so we can't track that. 2018, just half of the districts returned surveys that year. I think one reason maybe I attribute it to Delwyne's shortened and concise format this year. It was just 2 questions. It was not a daunting task. And I think it gave them time to comment and really think about what they wanted to say. Statement 1 happened to be on last year's survey as well, so we can compare the results and see if there's been an improvement. Obviously, more districts responded this year, but you can see that the number of districts that agree with our programs and services increased from 22 to 31. The neutral number went from 0 to 8, while the disagree number declined to 1. So that's pretty good.
I like those numbers.
Yeah. So last year's survey didn't have any statements about communication efforts, so we can't make a comparison.
Okay.
So you have 20 districts took the time to provide comments and constructive criticisms, and those are provided for you in attachment 2. So this was also a significant increase in the past. Last year, I think 8 districts gave comment. A common theme throughout the comments was appreciation for Bill Willibridge and the excellent engineering services that he provides to many districts who struggle with engineering. Other districts just appreciate the commission staff and find them to be a professional resource. Some of the constructive comments included training requests, simplified reporting, and just more support in general. So I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read through the comments.
Good.
Okay. Any questions so far on survey results?
I have a question, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So, and I did read through the comments, and I'm sure that you have as well. So when you talk about more, or they talk about more support in general, but those are probably, that's your summation.
Yeah.
So what can you point to in the comments? Is that where you drew that?
Two of them, two
Okay.
districts, and I believe they,
And so did they give any specifics, or what would be your opinion perhaps, if you want to give that, about what more support in general means?
I'm not really sure, but we will reach out
Okay,
to these districts.
okay.
So
Yeah.
you know who they are?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they were not
That's good.
anonymous this year.
Okay.
So Delwyne and I have already talked about what's the next step, and it's to reach out to these districts and see,
Okay.
you know, what are you talking about? How can we improve?
And you're probably getting there, so thank you.
And as you reach out, I assume that'd probably be like one of their board meetings. That'd be very good. At face to face where it works better. If they're meeting.
Yeah, if they-
Chairman, initially we'll invite ourselves via email or phone call, but yeah,
Be up to
hope to
them.
be invited to.
Joe needs something to do anyway.
Yeah. Go everywhere.
All right.
Any other questions on that?
No, but thank you.
So next, the district funds allocation update. 725,000 of trustee and benefit funds were processed for distribution to districts on July 15th. The per district breakdown is 8,500 for district base and 6,000 for district operations, for the total of 14,500. And as we remember, that's 4,000 more this year, thanks to all the great legislative efforts. And I know districts appreciate and can use that. They should have received their funding in 2 to 5 days, depending on how they're set up to receive funds from the state controllers. So that leaves us with $703,100 available for match distribution in November. The financial and match reports were due this past Monday. I'm currently reviewing them, and then I will come up with recommendations on which local support is eligible and communicate that back to the districts no later than August 30th. I'm working on setting up the dog meeting for the second week of September, and that should keep us on track to get those funds out by November. The funding process is attachment 3. You can see we're in step 2 of that. So after the dog meeting, dog recommendations and staff recommendations will be presented to you guys at your September meeting. If you approve them, that'll open up the 28-day judicial appeal window, and seeing none, then we can allocate funds.
How are those reports coming in? I mean, you've got them all now, but you may not have time to look at them all. It's pretty
Straightforward.
Good.
Yeah, I've reviewed over half of them so far. I glanced at all of them, and now I'm really going through, and they're all pretty straightforward this year, so
Great.
it should be easy.
Love to hear that.
That's all I have. If any other questions?
Anybody have any questions for-
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Okay. Total maximum daily load. Boy, that sometimes fits this whole agenda. Go ahead, Mr. Trefz.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Chairman. And thanks, Loretta, for, kicking it off, this is her first board meeting where she's presented a memo, and I was wondering what I'd been doing it the last 12 years, 10 years. She did great. Total maximum daily load. This is to update you on what we did in fiscal 2021. And attached to this memo is the 2021 work plan final report that shows staff completed 2 implementation plans and assisted DEQ to complete 3 5-year reviews in 2021. You can see those on the attachment. The Eileen was our rock star in 2021. She completed a 5-year review and an ag implementation plan for Hatway Creek, and also completed she completed both a 5-year plan and an implementation plan for Hatway Creek, as well as a 5-year review for the South Fork of the Clearwater River. And then George out of Blackfoot completed the ag implementation plan and submitted it to the Watershed Advisory Group for the Curlew Valley TMDL. Our goal for the year was to complete a combined total of 7 implementation plans and 5-year reviews. So we did not achieve our benchmark, only completing a total of 5 products last year. The most significant factor limiting our productivity in 2021 is the fact that we overachieved in 2020 when we completed a combined total of 11 implementation plans and 5-year reviews. This caught us up with the completed TMDLs in most subbasins around the state, meaning we must now wait until Department of Environmental Quality and EPA complete and approve new TMDLs before we can proceed with the development of our implementation plans. Your staff continue to work closely with DEQ and regional TMDL staff and with local watershed advisory groups to keep current on our TMDL responsibilities. The attached fiscal 2022 TMDL work plan outlines the TMDL related tasks assigned to each staff person for fiscal 2022. And you can see that most of those tasks, the deliverables associated with those tasks are continuations of what was on their work plans for 2021. A lot of them were waiting for DEQ and EPA. One new one is down in Rob's area, the salmon area, where the upper Salmon River, we somehow an TMDL for the upper salmon had slipped through the cracks and fallen below my radar. That was brought to my attention, so I put that on Rob's work plan for fiscal 2022. And that TMDL was actually completed in 2016, so we've got to hustle to get caught up on that one. But other than that, that is the report. If I'd sure stand for any questions related to the TMDLs.
So how many do we have on holding status? We're not waiting for DEQ or anybody else that needs work done on.
Just the one, the upper salmon, yeah.
Okay. And I see on the report here that you've got number of hours spent in completing these.
Yeah.
You didn't total them up anywhere, did you?
Not on this spreadsheet, I didn't.
I was amazed at how many hours there was listed here. I mean, there's a lot of hours, more than a year's worth.
Yes.
I've just been interested in knowing how many. I wasn't interested enough to pull out a calculator and add them up.
Right.
Pushing the question.
I can get that to you, Chairman, quite easily after the meeting if you'd like.
I was just
Total number of hours.
There's way more than a year's worth there.
Yes. And I'm
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
The number of hours that we're allocating to TMDL implementation work plans is going down because of the fact that we're caught up, basically. And so historically, we've been running about 50% district support, field staff hours, 50% to district support, allocated and discretionary hours for district services, and 50% for programs, which is CREP and TMDL's RCRDP. And as our TMDL workload shrinks, we're able to shuttle additional hours into district support, which is going to be a benefit for the partnership.
Mr. Chairman, so thank you. So Dylan, help me understand a little bit on the TMDL and the requirements. I'm not sure what to ask really. I guess I'll just say that it comes from the federal to the state and then the agency of the state that implements it, correct? In terms of timeline and requirements, when you're talking about the 5-year review or whatever.
Yes,
Okay.
The requirements for the TMDL program come out of the Clean Water Act and are administered and enforced and so forth by EPA, of course. DEQ is responsible here in Idaho for developing TMDLs for all watersheds, all water bodies that do not meet water quality criteria. DEQ has to complete the TMDL for the impaired water body. They have to submit it and have it approved by EPA. And there can be some significant back and forth between the state agency and the feds before EPA finally sends a letter of accepting the final TMDL. Once EPA signs and dates a letter saying they have accepted that TMDL, the clock starts to tick, and we have 18 months, according to the Clean Water Act, in which to develop an ag implementation plan. And other agencies are in charge of IDL is in charge of the forest land implementation plan. ITD has in charge of certain things, and IDEQ, we're the designated agency for agricultural and grazing lands. So those are the lands that we address in our implementation plans, and we have 18 months.
Okay, so all things considered, it's reaching out, there's a lot of fingers in every direction, basically.
Yes.
But what are some of the penalties, if, or are there any, if their criteria is not met. And by there, I think I mean EPA basically, isn't it?
Yes.
So, you know, I mean, it's important that you keep up with their timeline and whatnot, but what if you don't? What happens if you don't?
The timeline of completing these
Well,
implementation
EPA,
plans.
their requirements.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I wonder about it because in the Clean Water Act, DEQ, as a result, pursuant to the Clean Water Act, has to do a 5-year review on all, and yet if you look at the table of 5-year reviews in TMDLs, some of them actually are 10, 12, 14-year reviews. I mean, we're all behind, and I think that my understanding is that the feds and the state agency that we answer to DEQ in this context understand how strapped everybody is for time, and what a big, this whole TMDL and the whole Clean Water Act workload that imposed on states and on the EPA magnified into something much larger than the original Clean Water Act envisioned. You know, I mean, what we started out in Idaho with was 80 waters listed originally, and then the lawsuit happened and it blew up to 800 pages or 80 pages of impaired water rights. So,
well, that was actually my original question, but you gave some really good background, which I was looking for as well. So thank you.
And the other thing to remember, kind of related to that, Commissioner, is that when you talk about the regulatory enforceability of these things, we're addressing non-point source pollution coming off of agricultural and grazing land, which according to Idaho statute, all has to be, any water quality improvement activities on those lands have to be voluntary. There's no, we don't regulate or enforce Clean Water Act activities, BMP implementation or anything like that on agricultural, non-point source, agricultural and grazing lands.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that information. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Wendy, you're raising my eyebrow. You have a question there?
Oh, yeah, but it's a whole nother conversation. I mean, the TMDL, the initial one is a plan. And then you said we come up with a plan, as does Department of Lands, et cetera. So then the work starts. And I guess my overall question, Delwyne, is it working? Are we cleaning up?
Yeah, it's not working very fast. And if you put a dollar value, that would be really interesting. What's it costing us per unit of pollutant that's being minimized or cut out? You know, but yeah, there are success stories, Commissioner, and DEQ chronicles those better than we do, because that's their job to do the basin birth. Anyway, to monitor and see what's happening. Yeah, we actually are dropping off from time to time a watershed or a polluted assessment unit, if you will, some part of a creek that now is meeting water quality standards that wasn't in the past. So we're probably gaining more impaired pollutant water. We are, because like take the temperature TMDL thing, that's a relatively new thing. So a lot of watersheds that have had TMDLs for sediment or phosphorus or nitrogen or whatever in the past, now temperature is getting added to them. And so that's a whole new TMDL. I mean, that's another tough, it's a really, really tough one.
Well, and if water quantity is an issue, that affects temperature, and we know water quantity is an issue.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, it's sort of like when the Idaho Power fellow was here and we talked about the water temperature and whatnot. And if you recall, my question to him was, in accomplishing that water temperature goal, wherever the body of water might be, I asked him if that is humanly possible. And then he sort of chuckled, you know, and I get asked that question a lot. So, you know, because that's the first thing that comes to mind. How do projects control nature, essentially? But anyway, it's very interesting.
We're not doing a very good job at it.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, I heard, what's Julie Burkhart's husband's name? Wayne Burkhart, range scientist and so forth, talking to a Cattlemen's Association deal a few years ago. And he said he's noticed that even if you establish shade along a certain section of a creek out in the Waihees, you know, I mean, or wherever, southern Idaho, He's noticed that water doesn't slow down to cool off when it's going underneath those shady spots. It just keeps tumbling along. So it's a big challenge. And frankly, I've viewed it for years as it's a big red bullseye on the back of land users, rangeland particular users and owners, that kind of thing. I mean, that includes private and public land management, but it's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Very good, Dawn. Good information.
Thank you.
It'll be a problem for our children, grandchildren, this all time.
Or whatever life form exists at that time.
I know. Maybe they'll like warm water, but.
Are there any other questions related to the TMDL report?
Okay, moving on then, sir.
All right. That is the end of the for information only items. So we'll move now into the action items, and beginning with my administrator's report, which you have in front of you. I wanted to update you on staffing developments. Our CREP program manager position was accepted by Chuck Pencer. This is the position that he assumed July 1st and is the position that the 2021 legislature granted us with the intention that it would be a full-time position. So we have relieved Chuck of any responsibilities not directly related to managing CREP. And that's important under the new CREP agreement, that we be able to provide a full-time manager as part of the state's share of that agreement. We are in the process of hiring a new water quality resource conservationist to provide technical and other assistance to the Magic Valley districts formerly served by Chuck. And 2 nights ago, I attended the Snake River Soil and Water Conservation District meeting down in Twin Falls and went over that with their board of supervisors. And they're working with me I want to get a couple of supervisors from those districts to be involved on the interview committee when we do the interviews. I'll cover more about that in a minute or two. So at present, we are working to fill 2 vacant positions, a water quality resource conservationist that I was just talking about in the Magic Valley, and an engineer position in Pocatello or the Southeast Idaho area. To increase the chance of attracting the best person for the engineer position, we ran 2 announcements, one for an associate engineer, the other for a staff engineer. The announcements for these positions closed on August 16th, and I can update you today that 1 staff engineer applicant qualified after DHR did their sifting of we had 3 that actually applied. 1 of them is qualified, and same deal with the associate engineer position. 3 applicants, and 1 of them is qualified according to DHR's evaluation. So we'll be Bill will be working to set those interviews up and go forward with that. The water quality resource conservationist position for the Magic Valley also closed Monday night, and there were 11 applicants for that, which is just pretty exciting. Both the engineer and the water quality resource applicants are being now, though their application exams have to be scored by a subject matter expert, and we're hoping to get that done. We have SMEs, subject matter experts lined up that are doing those now. And we are hoping that by Monday, Crystal can start calling the applicants that we've selected for interviews and scheduling those interviews perhaps as early as the end of next week or the following week for sure.
Sure. Okay. So that water quality conservationist then will be located where? As the office?
The Twin Falls area. And
Okay,
I talked
Twin
with
Falls
Steve.
area. Because at one time there was talk of moving him further east, but I see that the engineer is coming out of Pocatello, or it could be in more eastern Idaho.
Yeah.
So that's kind of covered. So,
Yeah.
okay. So in the Magic Valley, they will be.
Yeah, and like Curtis was talking, and I was visiting with Steve Schuyler, the team leader there in Twin Falls.
Mhm.
It space-wise may become an issue. Right now, the Jerome Service Center, it only has FSA in it. We've got room there for a person, and Steve is working with Mark and Curtis a month ago or a couple months ago, they said, yeah, you can put your
Well, I know that was the original intent, and then it
Yes.
kind of, a couple meetings, it kind
Yes.
of looked like it was going to jump around. So
yes.
I just wanted to clarify. So thank you.
That is our intent at this point, and there's some fluidity still involved.
Dylan, that
Yes.
triggered a question I was gonna ask you earlier and didn't, but kicked back in again. When we were talking to Curtis earlier there, he made a comment at 11:30, they were having a meeting on Zoom to discuss office information and all that.
Yeah,
Do you need to have someone on that call to listen in, or are you aware of that meeting?
I am aware of the meeting. I have the notice and the link on my computer right now. That is,
If you need to know that, we need to know that for our
yeah,
field
yeah.
personnel.
Yeah, Curtis is doing a good job of distributing that out to the partners as well.
Okay.
And what that is, that's pretty specific to the COVID, their COVID
I
captain,
understand
or whatever
that.
they call them. So,
Right.
but it is good for us to know, to get it as direct as we can,
I
right?
didn't know if
from
you had signed somebody to listen to that, or we can find out later.
You know what? Let's see how this meeting is progressing. If I'm able to jump on it, otherwise I will delegate it to somebody. Joe, what are you doing this afternoon?
I thought maybe the best that you heard it firsthand and secondhand.
That's a really good idea.
And
Yeah,
they might come up with a question that
yeah.
you get answered. Okay, I just thinking.
That's really important, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Sometimes we get Curtis's requests of his staff get implemented differently in different field offices, and so it's good for us to have.
Yep.
You're spot on. Thank you, Chairman. Okay, so that's where we're at on the hiring situation, and we're just keeping our fingers crossed that we're going to get some more great team members out there. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
So we can train for NRCS.
Don't say it, don't speak it out loud.
Yeah. Don't jinx this, Chairman.
Right.
All right, real quickly then, as required by the Division of Human Resources, I completed the fiscal 21 performance evaluations and fiscal 22 performance plans for all field staff. And while developing the staff performance plans, I updated and modernized the plan templates for our field staff positions, including the templates for water quality resource conservationists, engineers, CREP staff, and our new CREP manager position. Performance evaluations for our administrative staff and financial officers and so forth are scheduled for December 2021. Is that right, Rachel? So that's what we're about there. And Terry had done a bunch of work on updating and modernizing the plan templates that we were using. But to give you an example, some years ago, my performance plan was a 33-page document, and it went into excruciating detail on what Delwyne was to do. And Delwyne would sign it and get to work.
And then implement.
So I just was continuing the work that Terry had begun on cleaning up some of that stuff. Telecommuting, as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to unfold in unpredictable fashion, we and our partners continue to respond in as responsible a fashion as possible. Due to the recent surge in cases across the country and here in Idaho, as of August 4th, NRCS began requiring employees, contractors, and visitors to wear masks in their buildings and vehicles, regardless of vaccination status, as well as to limit the number of people who can occupy each building at any one time. Where possible, our staff who work in NRCS buildings have returned to their offices, in some cases on a rotating basis, so as not to exceed the maximum allowed in the building. Others continue to telecommute per the state's COVID telecommuting arrangement until their offices reopen fully. And per the state updated statewide telecommuting policy, which just came out last April, several of our staff have entered into telecommuting agreements which grant them the privilege of continuing to work a portion of their typical work hours at home rather than in their office. The state's new policy recognizes the valuable role telecommuting can play in reducing work commutes, contributing to overall employee satisfaction, and thereby attracting and retaining good employees. So they kind of relaxed the statewide policy for those reasons and to address those kind of things. So we have people here in the Boise office that are telecommuting a couple of days a week and that kind of thing. And happy to work with the staff. I would note it is a privilege in all of our staff. We have to get trained on the telecommuting policy and sign an application and sign an agreement. And it's very clear that it's a privilege that can be taken away if there is performance issues that start coming up. Any questions on anything I just hit? Commission reappointment. As you know, commissioners serve 5-year terms at the pleasure of the governor. Commissioner Romer's term ran through June 2020 and continues until either she is reappointed or a new commissioner is appointed to fill her seat. Early in June 2020, Commissioner Romer submitted paperwork to the governor's office indicating her desire to be reappointed. Commissioner Trefz's term expired June 30th, 2021. Commissioner Trefz does not desire to be reappointed and has in fact relinquished his seat on your board. Chairman Wright and your staff have communicated to the governor's office your keen interest in filling the vacant seats on your board as expeditiously as possible, and we await word from the governor on his intentions for these positions. You have anything to add to that, Chairman?
I talked to, when Nate called me, Fisher called me yesterday, I again reiterated that it'd be nice if they get around to that. And he claims they're working on it.
Okay,
So don't hold your breath.
but it's still a work in progress.
Work in progress.
Okay.
We've got bigger fish to fry and we ain't it on this one. So
Absolutely.
that's probably good
We're
too.
the minnows.
Yeah. Another item, you'll remember that meeting that Chairman Wright, Commissioners and Commissioner Olson, Terry and I had with a number of state legislators this past January. During those meetings, we committed to completing an outreach effort to identify revisions districts would like to see made to statute and rule, and committed also to reporting back to the legislators the results of that effort. When Terry left, I wasn't certain what the status of that update was. So to make certain that the legislators were satisfied that we had fulfilled the commitment we made to them in January, and to solicit suggestions for moving forward, I sent the results of our district outreach to Senate Majority Caucus Chair Mark Harris, Senate Ag Affairs Committee Chair Van T. Burtenshaw, House Resource and Environment Committee Chair Mark Gibbs, and House Ag Affairs Committee Chair Clark Kaufman. None of them responded, which I'm taking to mean that they are satisfied with our efforts.
Okay, time out, so. Never make assumptions like that. And so therefore, it would be my direction that you call each one of them and specifically talk. And if you need some assistance, if Burtenshaw or Kaufman or Harris or Gibbs want to sit down and visit, pull a commissioner with us and we'll sit down and visit. I want to hear it from their face, email. I'll be honest about it. I get hundreds of emails almost every day in my junk mail. I try to look through them, but I don't know where yours wound up.
I hear you.
I would feel a whole lot better if we talked.
Yeah.
And if you need assistance, you holler. I'll more than happy to volunteer Wendy. Oh. No. Would you agree, Mr. Olson?
Yeah, I think that's a very good path forward. I would not assume that just because you didn't hear from them that everything is kosher. So I think that constant contact with all of them is probably prudent at this point.
And it might open the door. They may have another question. It has nothing to do with anything that you could answer and help them with, or let them know specifically that you're there, that they have questions.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
But we'd be more than happy. I mean, we were involved in some conversations to start with. We'll be more than happy to get involved again.
Real good.
Absolutely.
Real good. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Chairman. Rulemaking and statute changes following your review and adoption of temporary rule IDAPA 600501 during your June meeting. I delivered a proof of the rule with our notice of omnibus rulemaking to DFM Administrative Rules Office as directed by DFM. During your June meeting, we also discussed the opportunity to move forward with agency-initiated legislative action to revise and clarify Idaho Code, Section 222727, the allocation of funds to districts section of code. Following the meeting, I communicated with the governor's office, who did not recommend the agency initiate legislative changes at this time. And I think that's what we were expecting in June, that it was probably not a time to go forward with that.
Now I'm confused. That I understand, but as far as our rules go, since last legislative session did not approve, the governor had to go in and temporarily approve the year, and then they didn't approve them this last year, did they? I don't know.
They approved them, but they won't go into effect until signed, both houses sign it out.
So you guys have approved a new temporary rule twice this year. You did it once in February and we had to redo it in June because we had the original approval you guys did became effective upon signing die. It never happened. So we had to go back, do it again. You have a temporary rule that is in effect as of July 1 that you approved. We're going through proposed rulemaking now, along with everybody else's rules and another omnibus rulemaking. You'll have to approve that as a pending rule in November, and it'll go before the legislature. This time though, last time we had to do it every year because your guys' rule was categorized as a fee rule, which has special, which is different than a non-fee rule. Brad and I had a heart-to-heart about 6 months ago, and yours is a non-fee rule now, which means that the legislature does nothing, it's approved this year. So if the legislature does nothing this year, you have a rule for 1 year, and then if they don't do anything, year after we do it all over again. But
okay,
yeah,
Is it
that's
clear?
where we're at.
that's about as clear as my.
In November, you're gonna have to approve it again. That's where you're at.
So the
Yeah.
present time, we don't have to do anything.
No, you are all set right
That's all I care. Present time, we have
Yeah.
nothing. I heard that one.
But thank you for the explanation.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I better
Chantel.
get that out of her before we get a new person.
Well, I have a whole memo on your rules. Don't even worry. They're gonna know what's going on.
All right, excellent.
Okay.
Okay, partnership building activities. Having visited with Benjamin Kelly and Steve Becker of the IASCD in June, this month I met with Curtis Elke of NRCS to continue brainstorming ideas for nurturing and growing the Idaho Conservation Partnership. During our meeting, Curtis offered an idea which I believe has great merit. Briefly, Curtis suggested that he, representing NRCS, our key federal partner, Benjamin, representing our key customer base, the conservation districts and IASCD leadership, and I work together to draft a strategic plan for the partnership. The concept is that the three of us would develop a framework for the plan, which would then be fleshed out and fine-tuned through collaborative effort on the part of your board, the IASCD directors, and the districts they represent. Curtis and I agree the drafting of a strategic plan framework could benefit from the services of a facilitator. At the close of this report, I will recommend you to act to authorize me to proceed with initiating this activity and to expend a reasonable amount of funds to cover our share of the costs associated with hiring a professional to facilitate the initial effort. And I would add at this point that until I discuss this with you folks at this meeting right now, I haven't communicated directly with Benjamin or anybody on the IASCD board. So I can't say whether there's going to be unanimous support for this idea. It may just be something that Curtis and I thought was a neat idea that will end up coming to naught. But I wanted to talk it over with you guys before I started developing the idea.
And I did have a question on that. And I know that probably at this present time, Mr. Somerville probably would not want to comment, but I was a little concerned as I read this from the ISCD perspective. They would have to have full acknowledge and support behind Benjamin. I was thinking maybe that's the wrong person there, but that would strictly be ISCD's call, not mine. But that was the only question I had.
Would that, are you saying that direction then? Should they, would come from their board?
Well, it has to come from their board.
To Benjamin, if they
Yeah,
chose
yeah.
him. Yeah.
Thank you. It'd have to come from the board. I can understand Curtis, I can understand you, but when it comes to that one, I want to make sure that they have something going on there, because you know, we refer a lot to the exact board members. They may want to appoint somebody, but that's the one that we really like to point out that we need to find out. Would you want to add anything to that, Mike?
Can't
hear you.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman?
yeah. Did you hear the conversation, Mike?
Yes, I've been listening. I would only comment, again, not able to speak for the whole ISCD board, but I personally support that idea of a facilitator jointly selected by the group. That's the only way you can really move forward, I think. I will support that with our board, if you don't mind me bringing that up to them, and then we'll get back to you on. I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be possible.
Well, Mike, I'm glad you were paying attention, and I appreciate personally what you just got through saying there, because I think there is some merit to this. We just got to see how we can move forward with it.
Yes. Yes.
So thank you for your support, and we'll be looking to hear back from you.
And funding, you know, you got, the commission shouldn't be required to fund all of you know, we all ought to share in the cost of that.
I believe those are details that can be worked out.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'm glad you're on here still.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Mike. And Chairman, if you guys would rather one of yourself serve on that initial, this was just an idea that we just started to germinate, Curtis and I. So it would be appropriate for one of you to.
We may, and same way with the ICD board, we may want to appoint one of us to sit down, as long as we keep the group pretty small.
Yeah.
And that might be a good way for ICD to go too, maybe Benjamin and a board member, but we can talk about that more. I won't throw anybody under the bus yet.
Step in the right direction.
Okay, moving on.
All right, thank you guys. The MOA, Curtis spoke a little bit about this, and the reason I brought it up and wanted him to address it was that I did receive an email inviting me to help with the scheduling of when a time that would work for me and Curtis to get together at one time and sign all the MOAs that he's received as of that time. So, and those are the MOAs. Of course, each of the 50 districts is expected to sign one of those. And I've attached the MOA. It's attached to this agenda item. And in the attachment, I've highlighted all of the language that speaks to what the Idaho Soil and Water Conservation Commission shall do, what the terms are that relate to us. And Chantel has reviewed this and not come up with any. She's Chantel. How would you characterize this MOA?
So an MOA is not a contract. Nobody's bound by anything. It's basically a bunch of people coming together and say that we have a common understanding. That's what's happening. And if I recall, I think you all have reviewed versions of this at previous meetings for a few years. I think it's been a couple years. And I believe that's the same agreement everyone already reviewed. I've looked at several.
I thought we discussed this in the past.
Yeah, we discussed it, reviewed it, and I think we left it at one time. We approved it with minor changes that I think was being done by Chantel, or reviewed by Chantel, I should say.
I mean, the main issue I have is when you do an MOA, it's not a contract. So I think, and they took out all the language that made it sound like it was a contract.
Yeah, I think
so this is just basically, you guys are saying that the conservation districts, the commission and NRCS, this is your common understanding for how you will work together.
Yep. Okay. Okay,
So I have a question. This is Wendy Pratt. So is it my understanding that there's one of these between NRCS and each conservation district as well as with us?
It's a three-way MOA. The parties to the agreement are NRCS, each individual conservation district, and us. All three of us will sign each of the MOAs.
So each district has this
Yes.
that they need to
Yes.
do.
you haven't seen it come through your board?
It may have, it has been going on for like a year and a half or 2 years. It's been,
Okay,
so it
so-
may have been something that they dealt with before that
Prior,
time.
so does it come up every so often?
This is,
I wanna say 2011?
yeah,
What's the last
I think
one?
that was it.
And I
2011.
think
Yeah.
last time they didn't have each conservation district sign it, they had ISCD sign it, and so this year they took, this time around, they took the different approach and wanted each district, which is why it's taking forever
I see.
to get it done, yeah.
And like Curtis was mentioning, there's a couple of districts that are not happy with the language in it that he's arm wrestling with, that want to kind of craft their own MOA, but quite a number, it sounds like quite a number of them have signed and turned them into Curtis. And we were going to have a signing ceremony, I think it was conference 2 years ago, is what it seems like, and then that conference didn't happen, or the MOAs didn't get signed.
I think this, if I recall, the last time I think we talked about this was when we had the June meeting in Burley. How years ago was that? That was at least 2 years ago.
Yeah. So this is another example of when you hit human beings with change, they go into shock, they go into anger, then comes R. What's R? Resignment, and then comes agreement. We're slowly edging somewhere between being resigned to, well, this is the way it's going to be, to where they actually agree with it. So that's the Sarah principle.
So this isn't a renewal. This is the first MOA
No.
that districts have been, no.
No, this is a redoing of a 10-year-old document.
Okay.
And-
I'm
yeah.
clear.
Okay. Budget and performance report development. Rachel and I have worked with the governor's office, the DFM, our DFM analyst, and our LSO services office to prepare our fiscal 2021 performance report and fiscal 2023 budget request. And these two items are on the agenda and will be covered later in this meeting. And finally, the commission regular meeting schedule, which is again down at the bottom of this memo. Shows you we will next be meeting on September 16th. And
Now, back to that just for a second, I just want to pre-warn you, I am not going to be available, neither on Zoom. I'll be darned if I'm Zooming you from Hawaii. And so if you,
Come on, Norman.
and so if you run, I'm sure you've got to have the other three there, or else you don't have a quorum.
That's
That's
right.
present deals.
you hear that, Commissioner Olson? We're counting on you, buddy.
Yeah, I hear.
For you. Chairman Wright, if I may, the schedule is of course always tentative. If it need be, we can reschedule it or, push it back a few days or whatnot to accommodate the other.
I think the chairman is making us not so subtle suggestion. He just doesn't want to be at the meeting. So
I would, Chairman Olson, I would counter that. Perhaps rather than reverting $30,000 back to the general fund at the end of this year, we could invest in a commission meeting in the islands. Just a thought.
Probably won't go over well with higher ups.
All right, thank you guys. And the recommended actions are printed below this, at the tail end of this memo.
Okay, we have a couple of possible motions before us. The first one there is give the administrator the ability to work with ISCD and NRCS in drafting a joint strategic plan for the partnership. and clear authority to administer expend a reasonable amount of funds to pay with a facilitator for those discussions. We've already discussed that to some detail. Do we want to agree that we ought to move ahead with that?
I'll make,
This is
go ahead,
Wendy.
Wendy.
Well, I think it's just a little premature until the administrator position is final. I think this is important enough that I think it can just wait a little bit. I feel like, yeah, that's enough said on my part.
Okay. I can understand that position. Are we getting the cart before the horse yet?
Well, the relationships are just so important that we don't want to be premature. I mean, we've needed it for a long time. I love the idea. I think we definitely want to do it. But as far as getting it started right now, until we get that position finalized, I think is not
Right?
the best, not the wisest decision. It's my feeling.
Another month or two isn't going to change that.
Better be quicker than a month or two.
Well, if you move the September 13th meeting up, Bill, when are you going to be?
I'm leaving the 13th of September and getting back the 28th.
Oh, the 16th, excuse me, it says, I said the 13th. So, I mean, if you want to implement the strategic plan moving forward sooner than later, that would, I could see that happening at the next meeting probably, which would be less than a month away should we decide to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be there for that, but we can sure put that, and that might give the ISCD board a little chance to regurgitate this a little bit and come back with some information too.
So we'll put that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Wendy. I think it's premature. I think we should step back for just a little bit and get an administrator hired and then up to speed and then go from there.
Okay. Okay, so let's
Is it, excuse me, pardon me.
let's pull that back then and bring that forward next month. I sure don't have to be there for that because I'm like with Wendy here is I think it's something that we can definitely do and could prove to be very successful. So the support's there, I believe, Mr. Trefz, but let's pull back.
That makes good sense, absolutely. And Crystal and I have both noted that, and we'll make sure that's on the agenda.
Yep, let's don't lose it.
Absolutely.
Great.
You bet.
Okay, number two, there's good authority administrator sign the MOAs between NRCS districts and Idaho Water Conservation Commission. How soon is that going to be? We don't know yet.
We don't know yet. This recommended action, the way it's worded, authority for the administrator, that's not specific.
Yeah, that's a good
to
point.
any person.
Good point. So we need to have it done. So just a matter of, okay, would everybody agree to that motion? Okay, would somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Move ahead with that. Authority for administrator, and second by Mr. Olson. Any further questions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion carried. Okay. We are down to minutes of meeting. Is that right?
Sure.
Okay. We have on the floor June 10th meetings on page 32. Does anybody have any problems about the minutes? If not, I would accept the motion to approve them.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Romer. I move to approve the minutes from June 10, 2021 as presented.
Okay,
I can second that.
okay, a motion on the floor by Ms. Romer, second by Ms. Pratt. Ready for the question? I will note that item 10 was what we just got to discussing earlier. was all Wendy's fault on that one, so there, it was in there about the temporary use stuff. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion carried. We're now down to June 21st minutes.
I can
Mr.
make.
Chairman. Oh. Go ahead, Wendy. I'll second it.
Move to approve the minutes of June 21, 2021.
Okay? Motion by,
Second.
okay, we have motion by Wendy, a second by Eric. Further question? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, Mr. Olson.
Aye.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, we're down to August 10th. Short and sweet there. Mr. Olson, would you like to make a motion?
I will make such a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay. Second by
I'll second the
Ms.
motion.
Romer.
Mhm.
Further question? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Thank you on that one, Crystal, for all your hard work. Okay, financial reports, Ms. Menzies.
Okay.
Wants to show Delwyne?
Delwyne, or you?
I suppose we can show me, unless you want to see Delwyne's face while you want to make reactions while I'm talking about the financials. Okay. Okay, so we'll start with the financial reports. So the memo basically just lets you know that the year-end June 30th, 2021 financial detail and summaries are included, as well as the first months of FY22. The commissioner honorariums, the table shows what we've expended so far, which is about 8% of the honorarium allocation, and we're about 8% into the fiscal year. So we're in good standing with that. Are there any questions on the commissioner's honorarium table? Or we'll just move on to the financials as of June 30, 2021, the detailed report. So you can see here how much ended up reverting out of general fund. We'll start at the top left under personnel, general fund expenditures. We reverted just under $91,000 back to the state for FY21. A good chunk of that would have been for the engineering position that has gone unfilled since October of last year, and other turnover savings for that. So, and also the CEC that was not implemented until just a couple weeks before the end of the fiscal year. Are there any questions on the personnel expenditures for FY21? None? Operating expenditures, we ended up reverting out of general fund about $39,000, and that was after our spend down at the end of the year, where we did purchase some deferred items that we really needed but wanted to put off just in case we ended up with any sort of shortfall at the end of the year. As you can see, we ended up reverting quite a bit. Mainly in part due to significantly reduced travel over prior years. Now this year, we've already stepped up the travel. Fuel prices have increased substantially. So we're looking at running quite a bit closer to our spending authority out of general fund operating here for this fiscal year. And, oh, we'll move on. Okay. Any questions on operating out of general fund for fiscal year 21? Trustee and benefits, of course, we distributed 100% of trustee and benefits funds. The cash receipts figures you can see there on the right on the top, and that includes the payoff for the Franklin restitution payments. So we'll move down. The negative balance shown there for the NIFWIF grant actually did come through. That cleared, the EFT came through and cleared July 21st. So that didn't hit this particular one, and is actually not included on the new year either, because
We don't have spending authority for the grants in fiscal year 22, but that did come through in July and took care of that negative balance. So that is closed out and that grant is complete now. Any questions there? Professional services, I believe that's unchanged from the month before, with minimal operating expenditures coming out of that and also some cash receipts, but mainly interest on that. Any questions on the professional services? All right, we'll move on to RCRDP, personnel expenditures. We came in spending approximately 93% of the personnel funds out of our CRDP. And of course, that's only one full-time position goes into that. And most of the loan assistant position comes out of that and small portions of others like myself, because we work on that as well. But that came in close. There was minimal turnover. So some of the remaining balance on that was due to turnover, but there was minimal turnover savings for our CRDP and personnel. Operating expenditures out of our CRDP was less than prior years, of course, as well, due to reduced travel, reduced events and things that were attended for that. And we're looking for that to go up some as well in this next coming fiscal year. Any questions there? None? Cash receipts, you can see the total expended and the total received in payments and interest payments in our CRDP fund throughout the fiscal year. And of course, if you look back at the prior months, you can see that we are consistently receiving payments that will pay off the accounts, but we are issuing, as of this point, we're issuing quite a bit less in new loans than we are receiving in payoffs. Any questions there? All right, and last, the revolving loan, the DEQ loan. We made no additional operating expenditures out of that account through the end of the fiscal year. We didn't receive any new payments from them since since May. And you can see on the right side there, our remaining balance on what is owed and what is owed to us on that loan. Any questions on the DEQ loan?
Small question there.
Yep.
As you and I talked yesterday, you're saying that it's looking more and more like maybe in this year, they will pay that off. Now, we have some monies there that, of course, we've been earning on that account.
Mhm.
What's going to happen to those monies?
That is a question that's come up. As long as we retain the spending authority on that account, we'll still be fine. We'll be able to spend it down. Once that account's paid off, that's definitely something we'll have to talk about with the governor's office and DFM to make sure we retain the spending authority on that money that we have.
And how much do we actually have that's ours?
That's ours is going to be the cash balance, the 27,557.
That's actually what's there.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to hang on to that.
Of course. Yeah, that's definitely something that's come up there. I know there have been some rumblings for another project that might be coming up, which would just slide into that, but that's all talk at this point.
Right,
so.
okay, gotcha. Thank you.
All right, we'll go on to the FY21 fund financial summary through June 30th, 2021. So these are figures that are just basically carried over and are summarized here from the prior spreadsheet that we went over. So general fund personnel expenditures, the amount that reverted was the 90,700. And our CRDP personnel funds, we reverted approximately 11,000. Operating funds and general fund, about 39,000 reverted. Professional services in operating funds is unchanged from May. Our CRDP, we had approximately 77,000 remaining as it's at the end of the year for operating funds. And the revolving loan, the expenditures are unchanged from May. And of course, the trustee and benefits show that we did distribute all of those. Are there any other questions for the end of FY21 as of the end of June 30th? Okay, so we can move on to the new fiscal year. So the end of July, 8.3% of the fiscal year completed. And as you'll see here, not a whole lot was processed and posted as of the end of July. Now, next month, you will see a significant increase in what's been expended out of operating just due to our beginning of the year expenditures, although the big chunks of expenditures come out early on in the year. So as of right now in personnel general fund, we've expended about 6%, just over 6% of our balance for personnel funds. And of course, we do still have vacancies. The administrator's position is vacant as of right now, the engineer position and the WQRC that we're hiring for right now as well. So we're already looking at some personnel savings going on here. Any questions on the personnel expenditures at this point?
I do.
Okay.
So if we have to spend it before the end of the year, or it goes back.
Yes, general fund.
For personnel, is there any way you can say you're missing a position and you save money? Can you spend that, I don't know, with a contract or any other way during this fiscal year to use that money up, or is it just gone?
Those are discussions that we've actually been having, Dawn and I, especially concerning the engineer position, because it's been sitting vacant so long and we do have a need for that.
A backlog.
Sorry?
Backlog, kind of?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The problem is, as soon as we contract, that comes out of operating. And it's a bit of a process to move funds from personnel to operating, and theoretically we can request it, but it is a process.
When you say process, what do you mean?
It has to be requested, it has to be approved, I believe, by DFM and the governor's office to move funds from personnel to operating.
And that's a lengthy process or just entangled?
I've never done it before. I'm sure it's just.
It's more of an entangled thing, and politics gets involved because of the offices. I think LSO has a opportunity to review those kind of, Chantal?
I don't know, I think Rob's on the call though, he would know.
Yeah.
Rob is on the call.
Hey, Rob, are you listening?
Yes, I'm listening.
Can you answer that last question for us?
Yeah, so agencies fairly frequently transfer funding from personnel down to some of the other object classes. So you could, if you needed to buy computers, you could move it from personnel into your capital outlay if that was a capitalized asset, or you could move it into operating to do a contractor if you needed to. But that does get approved by the Division of Financial Management. So yeah, that's something we see fairly frequently across agencies. It's really just kind of a individual basis type thing.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yep.
We'll take your word for it.
So just prior to the end of FY21, as you know, we did hire a temp to help with a lot of the backlog by not having our TRS2 position filled. So we were able to use personnel funds for that because she was actually hired on as a temporary employee. So we were able to use it for that. And I know Delwyne and I have discussed and explored some different options to try to take care of some of the engineering backlog and try to use the personnel funds versus using our operating funds. Because like we said, we do expect with the increased travel to be coming a lot closer to the wire out of operating this year. So we're going to try to avoid pulling from operating if we can.
And Chairman?
Yes, sir.
And Commissioner, to your question, how we've traditionally handled when we have excess personnel dollars, there's a limited amount of that we can provide bonuses. Are they called merit bonuses to a limited number of staff each year? So we've been doing that over the last several years.
Yeah,
To
we are
extend some
limited.
of it. It's really limited, nowhere near the 90,000 that we had to revert this year.
And we we did discuss too, I'll come into this later, but we did discuss some compensation issues we have with, you know, we've had some turnover retention issues, in part because of our compensation rates, but those can't really be addressed through the budgeting process. We have to address those annually in the CEC plan. And we will be going forward. We're going to be working with DHR to try to bring some of our compensation rates in line, but we have to do it through the CEC plan, not the budgeting process. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions there? All right, so operating expenditures, out of general fund, as you can see, not a lot has processed through by the end of July, but you will see a significant increase here next month. Trustee and benefits expenditures out of general fund, we have issued the $725,000 here in July. And there's been really no activity in the cash balances, of course, as far as interest or any other payments received to date. Are there any questions on the general fund? All right, and as you can see, the federal grant section is gone, but those are completed, closed out. We're done with those for now, unless something spectacular comes up and we might ask for it in the future. So we're gonna go straight to professional services, which is pretty straightforward. Our spending authority is still at 30,000. Our cash balance over there on the right, you can see, is sitting now at 22,894 in professional services, and we're looking at some potential activity coming through them or through professional services right now. We're just starting the process. We might have to put it out for bid with purchasing, but I think it's Carolyn. Carolyn and I have been discussing that, so there might be some activity going on in professional services this fiscal year. Any questions there? Okay, we'll move down to RCRDP. Personnel expenditures is sitting at just over 7%. So you can see the difference between that and general fund, our savings in general fund because of vacant positions versus RCRDP. Operating expenditures out of RCRDP are very low as well, but you will see that increase next month as well. Moving over to the cash balances, you can see we have been receiving loan payments as usual on that. And no loans paid out that cleared as of the end of July. Any questions on our CRDP? Okay, the last section here, the DEQ loan. Again, we have the $30,000 spending authority on that, and the cash balance is carrying over from the end of June, the 27,557. And we haven't received any payments to date on that or made any payments to DEQ as of this fiscal year yet. Any questions there?
The $6 is interest, I found out.
Yes.
One point of clarification, and all of you may have caught on to that, but earlier there, she made comment, Rachel did, about some stuff that Eileen might do. And that's, again, is that soil testing that we did a couple of years ago. You might want to explain that right quick. Wendy's got it looked at going, what are we talking about? She wasn't on at the time. Delwyne?
That's actually Carolyn down in the Burley office, and you said Eileen.
Oh.
And but it's Carolyn, and it's working with IDEQ on a multi-district deep soil sampling project where we had DEQ contracted, basically contracted. Is that how you could speak about it? Contracted with us to do some of the TA related to that, and then we subcontracted. We found a deep soil guy that has a probe, a hydraulic probe, to go out and pull the samples and organized and administered and orchestrated the pulling of the samples and getting them into the labs, and DEQ then reimburses us.
They look for nitrates.
And we get some, yes, nitrates.
And phosphorus on it too. There's just nitrates.
I think it's not nitrate, this is a nitrate priority
Okay.
area targeted project that and they
It
will
was interesting
re-up the
too,
project.
that they found.
Yeah.
Of course, all of us anonymous, and we don't list people's names or anything like that,
Mhm.
but they produced a map and kind of showed what was going on.
So yeah, Carolyn's gathering some information on potential testing places we can go through right now, and it'll be split into two different parts. So there's the lab portion, which is less than $10,000 as far as expected spending on that. And then, but the actual testing part, because it'll be over $10,000, we have to put it out for bid unless we can get an exemption just based on the fact that there are just not enough people in the state to be able to do it. So she's researching that right now, because the last time we did this, there ended up being some sort of exemption.
Which position is this for? Is it the lab or is it the tester?
The tester.
The soil sample.
So there's an exception for bids for professional services less than $100,000. You might want to look into that to see, because I think last time, this is what we did, when we did the last nitrate sampling, we did it under the $100,000 exception,
Okay,
if I recall.
thank you.
And I even
Yeah.
have, I'll make sure you guys have a link. I even have the contract with the guy out of, was it Kimberly? Is that where he was from?
I
The
think
guy
so,
that did it
yeah.
last time?
And he was sampling all over the West. It seemed like he was a busy guy, so there aren't very many.
Just easier.
That's a really good to know.
Maybe,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Good
Easier
stuff.
is good.
institutional knowledge back there.
I know.
Right?
I'll write a memo on this for the new person.
Now you're gonna be out the door.
I remember.
Yeah.
confidentiality
Yeah, but still-
Yeah.
We'll be able, she still works for AG's office, we'll find her.
Yeah.
He tried to let me have the same telephone number, and I said, no way.
Oh,
Oh, Chantel.
That's
That's
the way you
okay, I
have
know
to
how
do
to
it.
find things.
huh?
So that's okay, I know how to find things.
Uh-oh, we'll send her a private investigator after that. Okay,
That's good.
Okay,
thank
so,
you. I didn't know if Wendy knew about all that, so I thought I'd give her an update. Us an
Thank you.
update.
yep.
It was really interesting. We saw the final results, and it was,
Mhm.
you know, after they were kind of placed in anonymity, because one of the big concerns was people didn't want to know who it was, or didn't want that out there, but
Well, DEQ has a nitrate map, and you can see it, so you know who's. I mean, I didn't.
There's
I
pins
wonder
on the
how
top
that's-
maps,
I wonder
right?
how that's related to what you guys did, but we can talk about that another time.
Yeah,
no,
it's a good
Okay.
question. There is an answer.
So, oh, I was just gonna say, we're doing the summary now, right?
Yes, yeah.
yep, okay.
Moving on to the FY '22, thank you, through the end of July, summary, just carrying over some figures. Personnel funds, general fund expenditure, expected expenditures throughout the fiscal year, assuming we can get fully staffed. We have them estimated at approximately $80,000 and expected through the end of the year. With a remaining balance, of course, because we are still experiencing salary savings because of those vacancies. Our CRDP personnel expenditures, the expected or the projected expenditures are about 163,000 in personnel. Operating funds, general fund, our projected expenditures through the end of the year are approximately 232,000. As we said, with the increased travel, we're going to come a lot closer to expending all our authorized operating funds.
Okay.
In professional services, operating funds, as usual, there's basically, it's a placeholder for expenditures projected to cover, as a contingency, to cover shortfalls. Our CRDP operating funds, we're expecting approximately 81,000 in expenditures out of our CRDP for operating. And the revolving loan, the DEQ loan, operating funds, again, is a contingency. We don't have any authorization for capital expenditures for fiscal year '22. And actually, I guess I could talk about that a little bit. We've experienced some failures, some computer failures, and we attempted to expend
some of our funds remaining out of operating at the end of FY '21 for some replacement laptops, 2 which were absolutely necessary, and then 2 additional ones that we got just in case we experience any more failures. And we were hoping to get billed for those prior to the end of FY '21, but we did not get billed for those until a week into the new fiscal year. So we were having to absorb about $5,700, I think, into our operating funds out of this fiscal year.
Okay.
So one of those was Chuck's computer, so that's 100% to CREP. Another one was split for one of the water quality, one of the WQRCs. And the other 2 we have just placed kind of in a holding pattern in 7101 in the management fund for right now until we figure out where those are going to end up going. So,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes,
So you have 2 that are kind of, are they sitting on the shelf or are they in somebody's hands? And I mean, what's going on there?
they're locked away, waiting for whose ever computer fails next.
Okay.
Basically.
Commissioner, we found out just real recently, Rachel and I, Crystal, that we are authorized basically to replace laptops every 4 years. And our laptops are how old?
2015.
So
6
we're
years.
6-year-old machines, and Chuck's physically, something expanded inside of it and it pushed the case apart. So we're holding these 2 extra ones, just waiting for the
Right.
next 2 to crap out.
Mr.
And-
Chair and Delwyne, I would recommend, having looked at the history of the computers, that when we get a new engineer, that the engineer most likely be issued a new computer. Alan's previously has had some issues with the battery as well, which was ultimately Chuck's issue. And it's been replaced, but replacement batteries don't necessarily have a history of a long life. So it might be in our best interest to just save ourselves some headache 6 months down the road and issue them a new one when they're hired. So that could be one.
That makes good sense.
Of course, that cost includes the fact that the computers of course had a redesign, so our old docking stations will not work with the new ones. So we also had to order new docking stations.
Well, and I really don't see there being an issue with sitting too long at this point, since you got some new people coming up. I mean, you can't really predict when, well, you don't wait for them to fail before you replace. I mean, if they're old and need replacing, but that's kind of what I was wondering.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we were at. We had the 2 fail pretty close to each other, and we had to pull the one that had been used by Derek, the grant position, and then the one from here, didn't we? The conference room one?
Yes, for a short time.
Yeah.
Better to have some on deck, I guess.
Yeah, and like I said, we were trying to pull it out of last year's funds. It just didn't work out that way. So.
Okay, thank you.
okay,
Okay, and then trustee and benefits, as you can see, of course, the 725,000 has been distributed as of this point. Are there any questions on the summary, financial summary for as of July of 2021?
hearing none, we need some action on this item. June 30th financial reports.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the June 30th, 2021 financial report as presented.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, got a motion on the floor. Ms. Romer, second by Wendy. Further question? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, moving on to July 31st.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to accept the financial report for July 2021 as moved. Or as presented, I should say.
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
second motion by Romer. Further question? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, that puts us down a budget request, but I need to call a timeout, because I need to go to the restroom. It is about 11:45. Oh, it is 12 now. We want to, how do you want to have lunch? You want to stop for a few minutes and come back, or what? Would be best, Crystal.
Mr. Chair, it's your house.
You want,
Your call.
I
you want,
think, yeah, let's break for a few
let's
minutes.
break for,
Have a quick lunch and then.
well, we can eat a little bit.
15,
but
20 minutes?
Let's go
20 minutes?
20-minute break. We'll be back in 20 minutes then.
Okay, that's
Good.
Good.
Calls and I gotta go.
What's that? Yeah.
I think at some
Some help, they would want to do that.
Yeah, no, well, no, I agree.
I mean, that's
In terms of preservation.
that's what my wife.
Mr. Chair, we're back.
Okay.
Doesn't look like Eric is back with us yet, though.
We're back in session, folks. Now, we're moving on to budget request. But that's up to you, Rachel, again.
Okay. Sorry, let me drink quick. All right, so I guess I'll just, the memo's not very long. I'll just go ahead and read through that. So the Commission's FY 2023 budget request must be approved by the board and submitted to the Division of Financial Management, DFM, and the Legislative Services Office, LSO, by September 1st, 2021, along with the Performance Measures Report. DFM issued the FY 2023 budget preparation guidance on June 3rd, 2021, which is actually attached to this memo. The guidance requires that each agency supported by a general fund must prepare its FY 2023 budget with a total general fund request not to exceed its FY 2022 original ongoing general fund appropriation by an amount more than 3.1%, which is actually more generous than it was last year. We are not, we have not been told this year to not request capital items, and we are getting an approval to go up to the 3.1 increase for, I forget the verbiage they use for it, but basically inflationary factors. Growth factor. Our original ongoing general fund appropriation amount is $2,967,200, and the request cap after the 3.1% is $3,059,183,000. Dedicated funds for us would be RCRDP, professional services, and the revolving fund, the DEQ loan, are not included in that cap. Delwyne and I held a discussion with Matt Reber at DFM and Nate Fisher at the governor's office on August 6th regarding the inclusion of funds for replacement laptops, the new CREP direct match funds, and additional details related to our FY 2023 budget request. The staff estimates that the state's obligation to provide CREP direct match will total $655,752 in FY 2023. The inclusion of this estimated direct match for CREP will bring our general fund total request to figure greater than the $3 million request cap. However, this CREP funding is considered an extraordinary circumstance will be requested as an additional line item enhancement as detailed in the budget preparation guidance and will be considered separately from our cap amount. So the preliminary budget request figures are shown in this chart. They include a 1% increase in personnel per the budget development manual, which is the salary multiplier. For general fund, this 1% increase and the requested funds for the laptops fall under that 3.1% growth percentage. So when you look at the chart, the personnel funds, the operating funds, the capital expenditures for the laptop, all those were calculated under that request cap, and then the CREP amount was added on top of that. And of course, these are just preliminary figures. The budget request has not been submitted yet, and of course, is subject to change. Essentially, the budget request for FY 2023, because of the request cap, is pretty simple. Obviously, like we discussed before, we do need some new laptops. We need to get moving on that. Now, Delwyne brought up some good points during the meeting on August 6th as well. Because of budget cuts and not being able to request capital items over the last however many years, we are facing kind of an aging vehicle fleet. We have one particularly problematic truck. Our laptops are obviously aging and are starting to fail. We have the vacant engineering position, which as of October will be 12 months, at which point generally it falls off and we may lose the FTP. So we had briefly discussed possibly requesting an increase in personnel to be able to offer more money to an engineer. But the facts of the matter are that we are not the only ones having problems filling an engineer position. There's multiple other agencies. They're well aware of the fact that other agencies are having hard times filling those positions. And so the likelihood of us losing that engineering position is very small. Or having that engineering position taken away from us is very small. And as far as the vehicles are concerned, there were some good discussions on that. And it looks like we are planning on selling off 2 of them, one of them being our problematic vehicle, our problematic truck, and doing a little bit of shuffling around with our remaining vehicles so that we don't have to request a new one for FY 2023 at least. It looks like we might still be able to work around with what we already have. So yeah, it was a good discussion, including some laptops was no problem. We're estimating, I believe it was, let's see, 4, 5, 6 laptops that we should be able to purchase in 2023, as long as everything goes well. So are there any questions on the FY 2023 estimated figures here?
Yes, comment, not necessarily a question. As I read through this, then there's an attachment of the Division of Financial Management, talks about all their guidelines, and then it even goes to an exhibit that lists all of the state agencies and the amount that their request cap can be. I would assume that, and this is a bad assumption, that Benjamin has seen this as far as that budget cap and that memo, and has shared that with the ISCD board. Now, being that assumption said, you know, in the past, you know, we've been given a bad time because the fact that we didn't request any more from the districts. We've been given a bad time. We requested too much from the districts. To me, with this memo and that attached exhibit, it pretty well, at this present time, equate, you know, but that discussion is actually no good because those things did away with all of it. But likewise, ISCD board and districts, I believe, should see that. Does that make sense? Because I'm thinking if we share this information, which is public information, with the districts, though, and maybe a letter to go with it saying, you know, this is what we're told, see this, and they would maybe equate, say, well, you guys didn't ask us anything. Well, there's a reason we didn't. We have to follow the governor's budget. We have no choice, and this is what he's told us.
So you mean because of the cap and all of that is what you're saying? Yeah.
Does
Well,
that make a little more sense? I'm just trying to be a little more maybe transparent and share information.
what would you send to them, may I ask then? This page here, is that what you're talking about? It's some sort of.
Well, I would send
or
item 10 and the 4 pages attached to it.
Oh, okay.
And probably a little memo to start out with and say, here's what's happening, maybe a little short and detailed. We just want to let you know what's happening. And it's not because we didn't want to, it's just because the governor's budget reviews didn't allow us to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, you're wanting to provide more information on some things that have come up in the past about, you know, why didn't you this or why didn't you that from the association occasionally, which are valid questions to ask, but we are constrained by things that many, maybe in the districts, have no knowledge of.
Thank you.
And so it's good to inform them.
In the past, we've had, as a commission, that more latitude. In the past, we requested, but they didn't tell us we couldn't. this time around they're telling us
This year and last year we were.
we couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And even though we may have wanted to, we can't do that. We're constrained by, by who we are, state agency. I still signed something more may be done for it, but we can't make that request.
Well, I appreciate that idea, and I think that is a good idea, especially when you talk about transparency, because I think there was last go round or whatever, it was mentioned that we didn't see this and we didn't see that. And by getting this out to them, then we can, whether people read it, whether people understand it when they read it, is not our responsibility, but it is our responsibility, I think, to provide the information, or could be our responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chairman, I think part of the letter that we could attach to this information would explain that, yes, we are allowed roughly $90,000 increase. That's what our 3.1% comes to.
Yeah.
1% for personnel has to be taken out of that. So, and then provide some rationale. So why aren't we requesting that $90,000 as an increase to T&B instead of asking for an increase in operating and that kind of thing? So we can justify what we are asking. I believe Rachel just did it here. And the other thing that providing them that information will reinforce that it doesn't mean that they can't go to the legislature and get another $200,000 appropriation.
Right.
So it kind of reinforces that, guys, it's up to you and up to the association to do your lobbying.
I think that's a good point too, because therein lies the word partnership again.
Exactly.
And this is something that you can do that we cannot do.
There you go.
And we encourage you to do so.
And Delwyne, I know from your experience, you could write something like that, but I would definitely have Joe or the Strickland here read it or rough draft it, because let's be honest about it.
Yes.
Just who's going to ask them the questions?
Yes.
The district's individuals going to be asking two of you questions. I'm sure Delwyne, you too, but they're going to be more able to write it to maybe language that little less of the pluses and minuses that she would give compared to down what makes sense a little bit, what can they read and simulate in a short period of time. That makes sense. I'm sorry, Rachel, yours will be $2 million figures in there. Yours might be a little bit more, I'm just saying.
User friendly.
From your perspective, how would you explain it to them?
That's okay. We do both.
In a short memo form.
We will get that information.
I just want to share and say, because we get asked that question all the time, and so the two of you, let's be honest about it. Here's why I look behind it. Or before they ask the question, you can say, well, just in case, here's the information.
And in the interest of better serving the districts too, Delwyne and I have entered into the new state's agreement with Adobe. So where every employee now has the full Adobe Pro Edition and Sign. It actually did not end up costing us very much more money, but we are absorbing that in this year's operating budget and of course next year's to better help with things like the grant writing and things like that. So it's just a matter of everybody learning and getting up to speed.
You're saying.
Yeah, Adobe, the PDF editing, there were only a couple of us that actually had the full version. And now we have the capability of everybody setting up secure digital signatures to be able to sign things remotely and fill in the forms and create forms and things like that. So hopefully we'll get some good use out of that. I know people like Joe now is happy. Chuck was happy to get his own version.
Eileen
She was happy
with
because-
having the access to it.
Yep. Oh, good.
Crystal's happy because I don't have to ask her.
Yep.
Oh, you made Crystal happy. Oh,
Not that I minded, but it frees up time for other things on my never-ending to-do list.
Yep.
So,
must have lost Mr. Eric, didn't we?
did we lose him again? No, he was having fits with his Wi-Fi, so he is connected by phone.
Oh, okay.
So he's not on video, but I can see him in the participants.
Okay.
Okay, so is IDEA involved with training on the Adobe? IDEA? IDEA?
What was that question?
IDEA? Are
IDEA.
they involved in the training for Adobe? Are they?
Isn't Adobe just strictly for staff?
Of the commission,
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
district.
Yeah.
Yes.
I misunderstood.
Right.
I was kind of thinking what you were too, but then.
Oh, sorry.
But
Yeah.
that's
Clear.
efficiency. You know.
Yeah,
to me,
because we
that's an
had,
example of efficiency,
Yeah.
maybe lacking in another area sometimes. but-
right, yep, yes, yeah, looking forward, like, I know that some of the districts really do appreciate the grant writing services, and that was actually in some of the comments that
Mhm.
Loretta had put in there, and I think that'll help us, open some doors to better help the
Well,
districts with
better
things like
service
that,
to
yeah.
our customers.
Exactly, and where like Joe, Eileen, we're having to send certain things to Crystal for her to edit in her version and then send them back. And now they can just do it on their own.
Well,
So,
I
what are-
applaud you all then. Good.
One of the other good things about the Adobe sign is that only the initiator needs to have sign in order to make those boxes for different signatures. So like, say, for example, Joe could fill out a grant application, and if the district needs to sign it, or NRCS or anybody else, just put a box down on the form for that person that's going to be delegated to sign it. And then it goes through a chain to send to all those people, and it all counts towards the one signature.
And they don't need to have.
And they don't need to
Right.
have Adobe Sign or anything like that. They don't need to have Pro. They just open up the link and it opens up an enabled version in a web link if they don't have Adobe, and they can still do the signature.
Now, so that brings up my next question. I just got through buying a new phone, and now I've got to learn how to operate, which doesn't necessarily work very well. I don't learn by osmosis. So my question is Adobe sounds great. Obviously, Crystal knows it pretty well. And we send out to all of our staff. Do they all know it? I mean, how do we train them on it a little bit? The do's and don'ts.
Basically, well, we are busy.
I know, but-
So we've been trying to, remind people that they have it. I should send another email. And Adobe itself, their website, so everybody can create their login, and they can use the Adobe products that we've bought for them in the web-based version as well. And there's quite a lot of training resources within there for them to access and learn how to use it. Like the digital sign, I requested my employees set up their digital signature, where it's a secured signature. You have to enter a password, and it's time and date stamped on it when you put it in. And they have step-by-step instructions on how to do these things. So, and I'm going along learning it myself too, because we're trying to streamline some of our internal processes, such as our payment vouchers when we receive payments that require various signatures. I've created a fillable format PDF for that. I'm still working out the kinks as far as getting people to sign where they're supposed to sign on it, where it'll let you sign on it. But I've created the first fillable form in PDF for that, and then we can digitally route it, especially since we are doing, as Delwyne mentioned earlier, where some of us are working a couple of days a week from home, so.
So I'm back to the point, that sounds really all good.
Mhm.
Do we need, I'm gonna rock Lynn here, do we need to set up a Zoom meeting for our employees just so you can talk? I mean, you just came up with 4 or 5 things that, well, I can do this, this, and this. That'd be great, but I don't have a friggin' clue what you're talking about, Harley.
Chairman,
Do all of our employees know?
let's ask a couple of employees that just got the, how's the learning curve on that, Loretta? What would you see as
It's
beneficial?
very user friendly,
Okay.
and a lot of your stuff is self-starters, so we're gonna find the training that we need.
Right.
Yeah. Because I'm sitting here nodding my head, but don't mistake that for complete
Yeah,
understanding.
I'm
of
trying to
what
go
you're
sleep on
talking
that.
about.
Yeah.
Joe?
I'm lucky here. If I have a question, I just. Hey, Chris.
Thank you. I'm just trying to understand
She's
that
mine.
really well here.
No, but the trainings are out there. If I do have a question, it is pretty user friendly and easy to find it if I do really need something. But I think it might not be a bad idea to have everyone together.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Zoom jam session, you might say, for an hour, saying, we're now, what project you have questions, say, okay, what questions you have a little confusion on, just have a quick jam session that maybe Crystal could somewhat lead, but anyway, because I'm sure all those employees out there, we made the assumption, all of them know that, No, back to that assumption again, didn't work.
You know what, we have an all-staff meeting scheduled for, I think, next Thursday.
Could bring it
Actually
up.
For today, but for next Thursday.
No, I believe it's next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Okay.
Let's just do that, okay?
Just a Q&A
Yeah.
before the meeting, say, hey, we're gonna bring up some comments and questions. What questions do you have?
That's a good idea.
And I'll about guarantee you, the question left unsaid is the one that needs to be answered.
Sure, yeah.
We all know how that is, right?
That's
I'm
good.
just,
Well, that was.
yeah.
That's
Good
good.
to hear, good to hear.
Okay, sorry, I got divergent there, but
Chairman, can I say one more thing?
sure.
This was an initiative that Rachel came up with and worked with Crystal to make this happen. So it's gonna, as you can hear, this
It's
is
gonna help a
improving
lot.
the efficiency. of the
Yeah,
agency.
and that's
I
great.
really appreciate that.
Just, we don't want that initiative to drop off, so well, I don't know how to use it, I'm having problems with this.
Of course, I know we're a small agency, so especially administrative staff is kind of wearing a lot of different hats. So I've got to remind myself to remind people to explore it. And sometimes that's all I have time for, honestly,
Right.
is sending out an email saying, hey, make sure to use
Yeah,
this. We've
yeah.
got it. But like Loretta has a really good point where we have field staff that are pretty much on their own, and just by nature, they have to be self-starters. So
But they're on their own, that site means they're reluctant to ask anybody a question. Because on your own.
Not
Oh.
true. Not true, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah. And nothing else is there going, wait a minute, I have a problem with that. Oh, Loretta knew the answer, I'll call her, try and get off Crystal's case over here, a bit, moving on to somebody else. Yeah, wish that was Joe, but it just gives people more options.
and just for the record, Chuck likes it as well.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
No new tricks there, huh?
Mr. Chairman, I heard that.
Okay, I was just saying if you were paying attention, Chuck.
Okay.
And in all honesty, for Chris, if I may, I am pursuing some of that. What could be acceptable through FSA or digital signatures with the producers and
right.
other partners out there.
Good point.
And I know Delwyne's still working on ironing out the final request figures for that with Nate, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, enough said, we beat that to that
Getting
problem.
back on
Okay.
track.
No, it was a good
Nice
discussion.
segue.
Excellent.
Is there any other questions on the preliminary 2023 budget request figures?
I guess we need to make an approval notice, right?
Ooh.
We're an action item on this.
Yes, so if there are no questions, I recommend that the board approve the FY 2023 budget request, granting authority to the administrator to make minor adjustments to request amounts if necessary.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Wendy.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Kathy.
Mhm.
Further questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thanks. I like to see that smiling face. Kind of. That was a frown I saw.
There it is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's frowning at his Wi-Fi because it's giving him
Oh, yeah.
fits.
Okay, so thank you, Ms. Benzick. We appreciate. Okay, moving on to Mr. Hobel Heinrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's that time of year where the commission by statute is required to consider interest rates at least once a year, and traditionally we've done that in August. We've had some discussion, as you know, the last couple of commission meetings, working with Commissioners Pratt and Olson, looking at the loan program and interest rates. So this, you may recognize this format's still the same. I'll just run through it, and then I've got a few other comments, and then I'm sure there'll be some discussion. So we're going to start off that first table in blue. It just shows the historically the appropriation or spending authority in the one column, and what the expenses historically have been this past year. I note that I spent $239,996. So again, as we have all of these years, we've spent less than the appropriation, and that's the difference between what we spent and what the appropriation was. So the next table is our actual revenue from the loan program and also from the Treasury, and just how we did with actual expenses. So again, the orange is historical, what actually happened. The green at the one row there is an estimate of projected. And you can see that the RCRDP revenue, the interest income, has been declining as you would expect with our loan portfolio dropping and our interest rates dropping. So, and then the Treasury interest rate, as we've spoken in the past there, how those Treasury rates have gone down. So our cash invested by the State Treasurer's Office has been declining. This past year was at $33,950. Projected based on our current rates of 1/4% that we're earning is going to be down to 19,700. So total revenue projected, and keep in mind 2022, that's just with our existing loans. If we put more loans on the books, there would be more accruing, although we don't recognize this income. It's on cash basis. So when they make their loan payments, when we get it. So anyway, we're looking at about $76,000. Our expenses, again, that's the actual appropriation on that green. That's not what we actually spend. You can see we're more than 200,000. And then the final column on the right is in the red is the amount that we spend, which historically the last number of years we've been spending more than we bring in. So that's that for that page. It's kind of a summary of the program of revenue and expenses. The next page, page 2, we've got the different types of assets for the loan portfolio and the cash and then a combination. So we have those balances. I apologize. I realize not sure where I got my numbers because Rachel presented before we don't match. And so I'm not sure what happened, but conceptually the concept's the same. The average interest rate on that loan program on that portfolio has dropped a lot, but it's still down in I've got it at 2.66%, and the cash balance is only earning about 1/4%. So if you combine those on average, that loan portfolio is earning cash and loans, it's earning 0.8%. So the next part that I'd cover is I report kind of what the borrowers have been asking for, just kind of the historically the interest term rate that people ask for. And I've got there the 7 and 10 year terms and got a weighted average of 2.54%. It's kind of interesting to note, I didn't list that from past years, but generally there've been more 10-year terms. So more people are asking for the lower interest, shorter term loans. And when we have 5 versus just a single person asked for or got an actual 10-year loan. So possibly an indication that people are looking for lower interest rates. I mean, that's speculation on my part, but that's not a lot of data with 6 loans, but that's kind of what people ask for, what we actually wrote. Moving on down in terms of, we have looked at what other lenders have loaned, and I have the attachment that included with the Farm Credit Ag Direct rates. We see them at 7-year loans at 3.29%, 10-year loans at about 4%. There's more details on that sheet, but again, Farm Credit, their equipment loans are substantially above ours, but I believe as Commissioner Pratt had mentioned the one time that they do have a feature where they offer, Commissioner Pratt, what was the term? Was it a rebate that they use? But they've got like a 1% back.
And I don't know if Ag Direct is that way or not.
Okay.
But yeah.
But so in other words, if that is accurate, then it would imply that those rates, the net, what they get, they may get something substantially less than that.
Yeah, about 1%
okay.
Less rebate at the end of the year, depending on how the institution does.
Right.
But
and I will say that one of the loans, and this is again anecdotal, one loan that we wrote a little over a year ago, we actually never even got the project completely installed, or they didn't get it installed, and then Farm Credit refinanced, and that was. I asked him about the rate, and he told me, and he said that, well, they also talked about that rebate, if that's in fact what it's called, and so that obviously was a factor for him. So, yeah. The other thing I guess I'd mention, insert at this time with the Farm Credit, I did go and just call, I didn't put that in here, I just called this morning. What FSA rates are, they are for their equipment loans up to 7 years, it's 1.75%. And they have the possibility of adjusting those monthly. They don't have September rates yet. I guess they said they'll come next week, but essentially that's what it was when I reported the past. So 1.75 is kind of where FSA is now in terms of another readily available number. Their farmland loans are at 3.25%, but I think those go out to 40 years. So I realize it's a different, but it's still perspective. So interest rate trends, I've said this over and over, the rates are low. You can see there what the fiscal year 21 rates for 7 and 10 year loans has been, the average 0.5% for the 5-year and 1.1% for the 10 year. That goes up and down. It's highly volatile, but again, the trend is, it's definitely lower rates, and a lot of that is the Fed's policy of keeping rates low to spur the economy along, and the Fed funds rate is really around 0.25%. We'll see whether that changes, but I don't expect it to change anytime soon. So, so there was one other thing I thought about adding. If you recall our June meeting, again, this was a lot of discussion that we had with regard to interest rates. And this isn't anything in a handout. I'll just tell you that if you recall, I came up with a proposed methodology for setting interest rates, essentially based on the Treasury rate. So I went and just did a quick little check on that. As you can see on our recommendation, I was recommending reducing rates by 1.5%. And again, based on a lot of the discussion between Commissioners Pratt and Olson and myself, and in the last meeting, you know, with you, Chairman Wright, and Commissioner, that it could be all over the board. I guess there's just a whole range, but I think it's pretty clear that the rates need to go down. But I looked at compared with the Treasury rates again, and it would suggest if we did that, 7-year would be at 1%, and a 10-year at 1.25%. 15-year could be 1.5%. So either way, it's a substantial drop. And I guess we'll just, I guess if the commissioners had any questions for me, but at this point I was anticipating an amount of discussion on what you as commissioners want to do. So
on your proposal, 7-year 1%, 10 at 1.25, and 15 at 1.5. Is that your recommendation for what you're bringing forward?
Well, commissioners, that was just a number that I came up really fast. It's Commissioner Olson, so I apologize, I worked this up just this morning, but again, it's all in that ballpark. Yes, I guess I'm. Yeah, and actually, in my recommendation, we haven't had a 5-year loan for a number of years simply because we extended that. The traditionally 5-year loan, we shifted it out to 7 years, again, to lower the payment to make it more attractive. I mean, we can certainly do that. We can set up anything we want. I had recommended not putting the 12-year loan in there. Commissioner Pratt, your comment about the loan fact sheet, at one point there that it's quite busy, that would be one small change to reduce the number. And quite frankly, the 12-year isn't selected very often, and 15 isn't either. But you know, we could reduce that to where there's just 3 choices: a 7, a 10, and a 15. But commissioners, I would recommend going with a 7, a 10, and 15-year. And then honestly, we've been discussing this for months, and I guess I'm waiting to see what you want to do. I've had a range of numbers there. They're all kind of in the 1%. Commissioner Pratt and Commissioner Olson may have some other ideas, and I guess I would open it up to for a discussion. So unless you have questions for me. So
So we had a Zoom meeting with Blair Wilson, who was the Idaho lead for the Northwest Farm Credit Services for a long time. And he's retired now. I think he contracts with him a little bit, but Eric, you know, and Terry weigh in with, to me, Blair pretty much agreed with what we had already decided, is that our rates are just not competitive or not good enough to attract folks. The program was initially used because rates were high and we offered a good deal, and it's just not good enough now, not reduced enough over the ease of going to their own banker. So it was a good call. I don't know if you guys got any other insight from him, but at the end of the call, well, I'm just gonna let Eric or Terry speak on that.
Yeah, I thought it was a good call. He basically confirmed what, you know, we're trying to do. We're trying to revive a dying program here, and about the only way we're going to do that is to lower the rates down to a point where we're collecting the volume of loans instead of the interest rate monies that we're going to be getting off of it. So it's just it's such a competitive market, and it's really hard to compete with the bigger institutions where they're geared for it. They have repeat customers. They don't have to ask for all the information that we have to ask for because, you know, we don't have that repeat customer base. So we got to make something, we got to do something drastic here to get more business in the door. And I think this is about the only avenue we have left to revive this program and see if we can spur some interest and just put our names out there and you know, try to get that pot of money out the door and collecting some monies for the commission. So I mean, it was good to talk to Blair, but he pretty well answered what I already knew.
Terry? Did you gain any additional insight from Blair?
Not really, no. I mean, not what we already knew. So.
And you know, at the end of that call, we keep hearing this, that we need to start granting some of this money. And at the end of the call, that was one of his suggestions. And I guess I'm not ready to go to grants until we really try to at least get our money back. And we know that through statute, we can't go 0%. So Eric and I were thinking 0.5%, but that's, I don't know.
On the 7 year.
Well, we just, I mean, we could modify it, but I mean, we could give it a term. But I guess my question to you guys is lowering it 1.5 enough? I mean, 1% is a great loan.
Yes, it is.
But I guess we need a punch that Terry can sell, can really go, we have a new program, you know, and we might even say, if this makes us too nervous, we might say, this current fiscal year, we're offering 0.5%, 5 and 7 year loans, something like that, and kind of give it a deadline. I don't know if that may make us a little more willing to do that.
What problem I could see with that is, you know, people will catch on, and if they're really interested, you say, okay, June 30th deadline. I'll tell you what, Mr. Heinrich could be very, very busy the month of June because everybody might be trying to meet that deadline. We better have some primers or guardrails saying, okay, if a person's applied, then he's eligible for it, or he has to be all completed or something like that, or if not, it's not going to work. You're going to make a lot of mad people out there at last.
Does the annual August to August reconsideration of interest rates, does that constitute a deadline?
Sure. I mean, it would. I'm
Yeah.
just trying kind of as
Do
a
it.
marketing thing.
Right, but
And
do it
maybe
for a
to-
year and see.
Sure. I
And
mean,
so I have another couple questions if I may.
You bet.
For the group and including Eric. So in past conversations, it has been the interest rate that's been an obstacle. And secondly, the hoops they have to jump through, meaning the paperwork. I mean, that's been brought up. Okay. So in your opinion, all of you, dropping the interest rates drastically, is it your opinion that that will overcome the jumping through the hoops as we've spoken about?
I guess I think we'll know until we try it.
Okay.
Yeah, we won't know until we try it. And, you know, from my perspective as a producer, if I can come in and catch a loan that's 1% or 1.25% or 1.5% lower than anybody else, I'll jump through whatever hoops you have to.
Okay.
So,
Okey-dokey.
I mean, we're just, like I said, we're trying to capture the volume part of the loan program, just to try to get it out there because I think we're gonna lose this if we don't do something drastic.
Well, we need the money to be working and it's not working.
Absolutely.
It's not working yet. Right now.
Absolutely.
And Rachel brings up the point that if it's fixed, it's also very attractive.
Yep.
Because looking at these figures, you know, from basically the competition, the lower rates are coming in the variable sector. Maybe people don't really realize right off the bat that that's a fixed rate when they come to us.
And we could leave the 10 and 15 alone.
So as I look at this last sheet that you handed out, Mr. Henrik, as I kind of gathered here, you're looking at maybe just forgetting the 5 and 12, which I understand, having 7, 10, and 15, and you're suggesting here 1, 1.25, 1.5. Is that what I'm saying?
Chairman, right, yeah, based on that methodology that I presented to the commissioners in June, just came up with something then, and it was based on, if you recall, we looked at the compared historical RCRDP loan rates to the treasury rate. In other words, we had to be below a certain level to where all that loan activity increased. Do you remember the graphs where? So this is really kind of what it's based on. So yeah, it would be a point where we, interest rate wise, relative to other rates, we would be in the same category as we were in 2006.
What are we currently at 7?
2.5.
Okay, and the other one's 3.75?
The 10-year is 2.75 and the 15 is 3.25, I believe.
You know,
so it's dropping 1.5, 1.5, and 1 3/4 in that scenario.
You know, Wendy kicked in something there that I hadn't even thought about. You know, we can make a drastic one on this, you know, go away to 5, make a drastic cut on the 7 to see what happens. But maybe because the 7, you know, locked in 7 years, you know, if you get a 1.25 loan, you know, it's a 10-year commitment, and 1.5 is a 15. But I'm back to what Eric made a comment to. If we don't use it, we're gonna lose it. So what do we do to get rid of it?
Yeah, the only reason 0.5 works in my mind is if you look at either, I mean, at least you get your principal back, you know, plus 0.5%. If it's a grant, it is gone.
Right.
So to me, it's kind of an either or thing.
I don't think
That's the only reason 0.5% appeals to me is because we are looking at the alternative is you don't get your principal back at all. So I mean,
you think the 1's too high?
No, I don't think it's too high. I could just, if you guys want to go with that, then let's try it.
Well,
I just thought 0.5% might just give it the punch that would really open some eyes, and it's.
People would have to call and ask, is this really the right number?
Yeah.
You know.
Good point. So 5 or 5/10.
Right. But so, you know, following up on that, are these recommended rates that we're currently considering in the yellow, green, and blue, are they low enough? I mean, how low can we go? You know,
Or give it away.
and if you only put one really low, is that taking away options for somebody else that might prefer a longer term? Why would you? But, you know, you want to make it a grocery list of things, you know.
Yeah, it's just a little scary, I guess, for us to make a 15-year 0.5% loan, because you don't know what the rates are going to be in 10 years. But we know what it's earning now, which is 0.25%, and it's bound to go up.
And commissioners, as a perspective, and I can double check this if you'd like, but I believe it was about a year and a half ago or so. The rates have been low for a long time, what we earned with the state treasury office, but I think it moved up to 1.5%, 2%, maybe 2%, which on the 7 million was a big difference.
Yeah, oh,
that was
yeah.
significant. And the thing is, that kind of stuff can change in
overnight.
Yeah, well, in relative terms of the program, you know, in a year or two, it could easily be back up too. But
So throw the hook out for really, really low and then keep the others kind of what they are because of the term, right? Kind of.
Yeah,
Chairman, from my perspective, if I could, I think we've got to do something.
Agreed.
The legislature, the state doesn't care how much we're earning on that money. They didn't create that dedicated fund so we could earn interest. They created that fund to benefit the state, agricultural economy, and natural resources. And if that money isn't out there, I say my suggestion would be right along with what you guys, I don't differ from you guys, go as low on the shorter term, 7, 5, whatever, go as low as you can stomach. And yeah, there may be some significant opportunity costs involved at the end of the day, but we've got to demonstrate that we are committed to putting that money to work. And honestly, the least of my concerns is how busy Mr. Hogelheimer is.
Wouldn't that be a good problem?
That would be awesome.
Okay.
So,
I do have a question.
Yes.
Here, just for my general knowledge, on your longer term loans, how many of the participants actually take that long time? Do they pay them off early typically? I'm a long-term girl and I pay it off.
So are you referring to the 15-year loans or just loans in
Do they
general?
keep them in 15 years? Do they take them out as 15 years? Or
Yeah, well,
what percent pay them off?
I will say that I haven't calculated percent, but I would say the ones that take 15 years, they're keeping them.
They keep 15.
Yeah.
Because the interest rate's a lot lower probably than what they've got elsewhere.
Yeah. I think I don't claim to be in the minds of the producers, the borrowers, but I think they look at, you borrow capital and, the idea is that you put it to work and it earns far more than the 3% you're charging, and so that's, in that sense, as long as they're making more back than they're earning, then yeah, they keep them there. What we have had in terms of payoffs is we have had a couple where they essentially refinanced. And I think in those cases, they're doing more things. And I know the one particular borrower that hadn't finished installation, we knew he had more things that he wanted to do, but he was going to do them in segments. And I think he just moved that up faster. And so part of the deal is, and that's why, with lenders, when you're competing for collateral, then of course Farm Credit will say, well, let's just take that whole thing and we'll wrap it all, into one loan. The other individual was doing some work, and it was a small project, but had their home involved and they were refinancing their home. So I don't think there was anything wrong with our loan. It was just when it came with collateral, it had to, they had other things they're doing. So I think most of them keep it out there. There's some that pay off a little early, but
yeah, it seems like farmers don't seem to provide debt.
it depends on which era you're in. Some of us recall a time when there was a lot of there's a lot of debt. I will say this, that there are some applicants that, and younger ones that they are taking on a lot of debt. So, but they didn't live through the 70s and 80s.
Now, you know, I can see about 2 or 3 options here, or that's been brought up. One is to drop the 7-year down to like 1%, like you have written here, and then leave the 10 and 15, you know, higher, maybe higher than 1 1/4, 1 1/2, to try and push it to 7. Or we could do just about like you said there, you know, 1 1/4, 1 1/2.
Well, I like what, unless you're in favor of going with the 0.5% on the 7. I mean, I know you've mentioned that several times.
I mean,
that could be the real draw for, you know, and see where we are in a year, basically. Because, you know, yeah.
Let's be honest about this. We don't have to wait for a year to change rates.
No,
we can drop them
anytime
we want.
Okay.
Yep.
We can just agendize it and say, we need to do some difference, not working as good as we were hoping for.
Okay.
So we can try the 1. And if we didn't get good results, 6 months from now, 3 months from now, saying it, we didn't go far enough. But God, 1's pretty doggone cheap money. When I'm looking at these 4 and 5% variable rate tables.
I guess I was thinking when you said we consider it usually every August, that there was some sort of year anniversary, but we can do it at any time.
Commissioners, just another, there's one loan inquiry where I'm kind of waiting for them to act, but telling them the rates, and they're interested at the 2.5, 2.75. And they went to the bank and he said, well, I can get a 5-year loan for 4%, but I'd rather go with you guys. So that kind of gives you a perspective of, you know, I'm still waiting on them, but
you throw them 1%, you'll be in here signing up.
Well, I hope so. I have had since the first of the fiscal year, I think it's 8 inquiries, but if you recall, I'm, you know, not to oversell this, but a lot of times there's a lot of inquiries for a number of applicants, but I also think some of them, you know, I've said that likely the commission will be changing rates. So
yeah, so they're waiting for that.
And some of them are waiting. In fact, one I'm literally, as soon as you make a decision, I'll finish the write-up and change the numbers and go from there. So he's waiting.
You know, could I, Chairman?
I guess.
Just hit on something that I'm really curious about.
Of course.
I'm just gonna go. You just hit on something. You said there's a borrower that has stated he'd rather go with you than whatever. So what's happening? How come they're not all going with us? Or how come we've got $7 million that we're having a tough time getting out the door? I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but that's
if I knew that.
Okay.
If I knew, I mean, everyone has their own situation. I don't know.
But that could be an outlier. I mean, that's a very individual situation. It doesn't necessarily apply broadly to borrowers across the state.
Yeah, that's anecdotal. That scenario I gave you just, I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Joe.
You know, looking at this, I like round numbers. So, you know, like you have the 7 at 1, I think that's, to me, feasible. We should look hard at doing that. 10, as we go out longer, I think the rates just get a little higher. So I was thinking 1, 1.5, and 2. That was just a thought.
Commissioner and Chairman and Commissioners, and keep in mind, historically, the way we've had the rates, people have been choosing primarily the 7 and 10 year.
That's fine. That's what we got to set up for.
Yeah,
we're trying to push.
There are very few that go. Part of that, the 15 year, I think, is a real estate. You know, where you don't you take real estate with that.
Yeah.
So, the 12 year as well. It involves real estate. So I think there's other factors as to why they don't, but
That's a lot of good, they made 15 to start with, so.
yeah, but although historically, a lot of them, the loan program did have a number of 15-year loans, but I think their policy on, I mean, they took a lot of seconds and
Now,
thirds.
that may occur again because our limit now is 600,000, isn't it?
Yes.
And that 15 might be a little more conducive on payment wise on $600,000 if we ever get anybody that high, but, and I'm sure just as soon as I say we aren't, we will.
Yeah, Commissioner, there is one existing borrower that says he has a larger project, and again, I'm waiting, but then he said getting quotes as I said, it's the costs are going up.
They won't commit.
And some of those quotes, they're good for that day, because they said the steel prices have been going up and the PVC pipe is going up. And so it's, that's something too, that, I don't know, I guess we'll see, but, EQIP is still there. And there's still plenty of people that when they call, they have an EQIP contract. So that's important part.
Well, go ahead.
Well, we've been discussing this before Commissioner Pratt even came on board. So it's been being discussed for quite some time. And I really appreciate the work that the subcommittee has done on this, and also the work that Mr. Hobel-Heinrich, whenever have asked for information, it comes in great detail and you're always ready to answer a question thoroughly. So I appreciate all of your efforts as well. And so I'm ready to make a decision. I guess I'm just waiting for one of the subcommittee members to make a motion as to what they would like or to vote on.
Eric?
Motion to take Terry's recommendations and apply them for the current fiscal year or whenever we decide to change them again.
Is that the 1 through 5 and 1-5?
Yeah, I think we'd be better off to keep it a little bit lower. Norman, I know you said 2%, but I still think I'm kind of with Wendy on that one. I think we need a little bit more of a kick. And I think that there'll be people swarming through the door, so.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, just if I could, I guess I'll wait till
second.
You do it.
A second by Wendy. Okay, now discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Weinreich.
Did you second it? Sure. Well, it's been your project.
Well,
I'll give you the privilege.
I'll second.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to clarify so we can have for the record, because what I have in written for recommendation, I had other numbers, so I just want to make sure that we're very clear that we understand what it is that the motion is about. So which rates?
I would assume the yellow, green, and blue rates, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what my motion entails is.
Well, Mr. Chair.
No, I don't think we need to.
Not the 15, right? You didn't want the 15 to be, was that right?
Yeah, he said all three of them.
Oh, he did?
All three of them. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah,
You're saying 7-year, only 7-year at 1%, 10-year at 1.25, and 15 at 1.5. That's what we're saying.
And I would say, Terry, if you get somebody coming through the door that wants to do a 5-year, take it down and come to us, and we can make a decision on it. We can figure out something there. If they're serious and they look like they're a creditworthy person for a 5-year loan, let's see what they have to say. And we can come up with a term and a rate there, which would be less than the 1%.
Well, let's just make it 1. Can we do that? Can we make the 5 and 7-year 1?
Okay.
Yeah, let's just go 5/7.
Yeah, and Commissioners, typically what happens is the way it's phrased is loan terms up to 7 years, and so most people choose a 7, knowing that they can
pay off in 5.
They can pay it off earlier if they want.
That works.
So that
works.
Simple.
So that will include.
Front page
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have motion on the floor. It's been second. Further discussion.
None here.
Hearing none. All in favor to change the rate 7 year to up to 7 years 1%, up to 10, 1.25, and up to 15, 1.5.
That's what I
Okay.
understand.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carried. Go to work, Mr. Hobelheimer.
Go to work
Okay.
and the other thing, two things we got is no fee
Right.
That's correct.
and fixed rate. And
Right.
those
Yes.
are two big things. Because the fees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you better eat your Wheaties, Terry.
Okay.
So glad we
What'd you
finally
say?
came to
Eat my
a
Wheaties.
decision. Aren't you glad that's over?
Okay, what's that?
Aren't you glad that's over?
I was hoping for a decision, yeah.
How long have we been talking about this?
Quite a while.
Mr. Hobelheimer,
Pardon?
Mr. Trefz has a good question.
Could a current borrower come in and refi at these new rates?
No.
Okay.
Because it's already.
So,
Yeah, but the whole point is to encourage to implement the project, and once it's implemented, then.
it's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is in the rule, isn't it?
Yeah, I
We
believe so,
can't
yeah.
refinance
Okay.
at 65.
So when does the next newsletter go out?
At the beginning of the month.
Not very far
So
away.
this should
Around
be
the
in
first week of
newsletter.
September.
Yeah,
Newsletter,
at least there.
website, and
Front page for work.
I know one of the ads, commissioners, one of the ads they just sent and said, if you want to change the content, I said, well, actually, there's a meeting today. I'm probably going to change the rates. And she said, well, get it to us by later this month. So it'll be in print next month already on some of them. So
Okay,
Okay.
we'll just wait and see
Good
what
work.
happens.
see what happens.
Advertising local, just local conservation districts, newsletter.
We would if they allow it.
If we paid.
We can, many times, yeah, we need to buy an ad. It'd be nice if they would just write a little blurb and do it for free, but
Well, you could create the blurb and send it out and
see what they do.
see
Yeah,
what they
yeah.
do. Saying we appreciate just letting your fellow district people know.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
It's a good way to advertise anyway. We've already got the distribution list.
Yeah. Well,
In fact, I'll throw this or question this. I know it's a little different, but could we write a news flash, use our same distribution list we use to newsletters?
Sure.
I mean, we don't have to have Steve Stubner write it. You can write it. Or somebody can write it, maybe.
and commissioners, I
Kirsten
can,
write,
I
don't
can
know.
use less words than the fact sheet, so I can
Doesn't have to be very long, so.
No,
You
it
can
doesn't.
put down at the bottom, we appreciate if possible, put this in your newsletter, whatever it is. There's districts that'll be more than happy to do it.
Terry, even if you, because I know some of your ads have graphics and stuff, if you just send me JPEGs of those ads that you print for like Ag Proud, I can circulate that via Constant Contact and let districts know if they want to put that in their newsletters. They
Okay.
have our full permission to do so.
Okay.
And then it's short, sweet, and to the point, and they can resize it as needed.
Resize it as
Mhm.
Might be interesting to see what happens by next meeting.
Might
Okay.
get these people to move.
Is that it, Mr. Hobelheimer?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Number
Thank you.
12,
Okay.
Mr. Trefz.
Go call the farm.
Thank you again to the
Or
subcommittee.
applicant, I should say.
There we go. Now, hopefully, Barb.
Well, that was good work, you guys. I appreciate that.
We'll find
Everyone
out.
appreciates that.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
that's true. We'll find out.
All right, the next item is the performance report for fiscal 2021. And attached is the draft commission performance report. Per DFM instructions, the report includes a table for the new performance measures developed last year, followed by a table for the old performance measures, which will eventually fall off. Those have to stay on for 5 years. Note that the PMR is purposely not all-inclusive and is condensed per instructions from DFM. The following elements of the report are mandatory: agency profile, core functions, general fund revenues and expenditures, a profile of key services, performance highlights, and performance measurements. Of the mandatory elements, the profile of key services is the one most changed from previous years. For this year's report, we did not include conservation services provided by NRCS, so we could focus attention on the services provided directly by the commission. Our fiscal year 2020 performance report is attached for comparison purposes. So you see on the attached fiscal 2021 performance measures, it follows along almost verbatim with the fiscal 2020 performance report on the first page of it until you get to the bottom. And you see on the bottom of the 2020 report, which is page 62 of your materials, there's a table there titled Profile of Cases Managed and or Key Services Provided.
And this is what's different. Is that what you're pointing out?
That's the one that changed. On page 56 is the revisions I made to that table. And this was in conjunction with Matt Reiber of Division of Financial Management, who we have to submit this information, this report to.
Okay.
So his question was, what ownership did we as the commission have in these conservation activities that we're reporting? As underneath the title, it makes it appear that we were responsible for them. It says cases managed. And for instance, the first line, conservation systems implemented on all cropland acres, 125,000 acres of cropland that we managed the implementation of conservation on. And I informed Matt, I said, he was asking how much we had invested or how many of our funds had gone into cost share or helping to fund those projects. I said, we haven't had any implementation dollars since 2010. So in reality, I got really uncomfortable in the face of his questioning and thinking about being at a germane committee or visiting with the legislator and then saying, man, this is so awesome. You implemented riparian area protection on 10,000 acres. Can you give me an example of what that looks like? And I'd have to say, well, I don't really know. You have to ask NRCS because it was actually NRCS. And it's the PMR, the next sentence below that table is clarifying that the numbers above include conservation statistics from federal and local partners. Working with DFM on this PMR, we agreed that if we could just report on activities and accomplishments that we actually managed, provided, that it would be a lot less chance of painting ourselves into an uncomfortable corner that we'd have to wiggle out of. Right. So that's what we came up with. For just a quick profile of the kind of things we do, that's what this table is supposed to provide. Just a snapshot of number of landowners assisted, technical assistance hours that we provided to districts, technical assistance provided to landowners enrolled in USDA in the CREP program, and then total maximum daily load implementation plans developed. And so the numbers are a lot less, I mean, you know, a lot smaller, but they're realistic. They report what we did and they demonstrate a value to the state, even given that they are
pertain directly to this agency rather than including our partnerships and whatnot.
Exactly. To our
More
statutory
concise, actually, yeah.
authorities and responsibilities and that kind of thing.
And you could answer questions based
Yeah,
on what.
yeah, yeah. I don't have to stand there with a deer in the headlights look, or you guys don't when you are drifting through the halls of. Right. So that really, other than that, then in the PMR table, as mentioned, the part 2 on page 57, where our performance measures, that's where we begin reporting, and as noted in the narrative, beginning with fiscal 2021, DFM helped us restructure and rebuild this table. And all of these performance measures, of course, relate back to objectives and goals in our strategic plan. So we're reporting on what we did as far as accomplishing what we set out to accomplish in our plan.
May I ask a question? And didn't we learn that the strategic plan then needs to line up with statute as well? And so now we've got I don't want to say a free flow, but in a way from strategic plan to where was I going with that?
We start with statute, it goes to strategic plan,
Oh, to
it goes to
performance.
PMR.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And the PMR is kind of it's kind of like conservation planning. You have this loop and there's always a feedback point in the loop where we evaluate, we monitor, we see how we've done as far as achieving our objectives. And if we need to make some adjustments, then we have that opportunity in the PMR. You'll see what the target for next year is for each of these.
So if you were having to, let's say, explain what you said under key services, just as an example, then to somebody, okay, who would that be? Like legislators, the decision makers, correct?
Yeah.
Would that ever be worthwhile just to ad lib a little bit and point out to them that formula of, we're in compliance, we recognize, and, with what you're asking of us as an agency?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
I think it really would. It doesn't hurt to just remind people that we are providing the value and accomplishing the policies of the state as set out in statute.
Exactly. Yeah.
You bet.
Okay.
We're not just out here. Okay. Are there any other questions on the performance measures report?
I have just a quick one. So page 68 of our materials, I just noticed here on the asterisks, it says that the second one, the decrease in the number of loans is due to low commodity prices, making it much more difficult for applicants to qualify. That's not true, and Terry agrees with me.
Yeah.
Are we the ones to strike that? I mean, we could certainly say due to the low interest rate environment, if we wanted to.
How would you suggest we reword that? Because we don't have to submit this report till the 27th of this month. So
it's due to low interest rates in the competitive lending environment.
Perfect right there.
Yep.
Kept that in due to. After that, when you just got through stating.
Due to low interest rates and competitive lending environment.
Yeah.
We will make that change. I like it.
Yes.
Very good.
Good catch too.
It is.
That might have been true a little while, a few years ago, but not right now.
No.
Yes, absolutely. And that, I'm sure that's exactly what happened. That's
My
carried
prices
over.
are actually kind of going through the roof because they're blocked up.
Yes. Good catch.
Do you have to go back through this with DFM?
I have to submit it to DFM and Nat will review it and work with me on any other changes. I've worked with him quite closely on that table that I spoke of earlier.
Okay.
And submitted in this very draft to him, and he said that's good.
It'll be good to point that out to him.
Absolutely. Yeah, good catch. Thanks, Wendy.
Okay, with that change then, are we going to approve the performance review report?
Action item for
12. Yes.
Number 12. Okay. I move to approve fiscal year 2021 performance report as submitted, parentheses, authorizing the administrator to make minor changes as necessary prior to submission.
With the, with the revision comments or whatever.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
I don't know how exactly to say that in there, Crystal. We want to make sure that we acknowledge that last little revision you had, okay?
Approve fiscal year 2021 performance report as submitted with minor changes as noted.
Yeah.
And in parentheses, if any other are needed.
Yep.
Will that work?
I'd look, it makes you happy, it makes me happy.
Yeah.
Provisions as discussed.
As discussed.
And you
Okay.
might, you could probably even reference the revisions that Commissioner Pratt suggested.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah, that's my motion.
Yeah, and we have a second?
Second.
Second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay. Got number 13.
Lucky 13.
Yes.
This is the final action item on the agenda today. And this is relates to the revised CREP agreement that we signed in that new agreement, a commission representative is required to sign the agreements not to divert water from the Eastern Snake Plain Aquifer and any amendments and or modifications thereto with producers participating in CREP. Chantel recommends the delegation of powers and duties you approved in June be updated to include a paragraph specifically delegating the administrator authority to sign these CREP documents on your behalf. And attached is the updated delegation of powers and duties to administrator drafted by Chantel. Section 1E grants the administrator authority to sign CREP documents.
If I could just add one thing too, in June, when you all delegated authority, you delegated authority just to the acting administrator. So this one would update it. So when the new permanent administrator gets in place, they just get to do the same things.
Okay.
Additionally.
Thank you, Chantel. And that section 1E is on page 7.
Right. So.
Need a motion?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to approve the updated delegation of powers and duties to the administrator and to delegate powers and authorities to the acting administrator until new administrative officer is selected and assumes the position, at which time the powers and authorities will transfer.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Further question? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 13 was quick and easy.
13.
Okay. I think now we are down to our executive session.
Yes, sir.
All right. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make that motion that we move to enter executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061A to consider hiring a public officer.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, the motion on the floor. Session, a second that, roll call vote.
Chairman Norman Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Kathy Romer,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Olson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wendy Pratt.
Yes.
Okay. So Mr. Olson has to recall in something else or?
Yes,
resume or
he's got an
delete?
executive session.
Okay.
Haley, I know that you are on the line as well. You should have the executive session information as well.
She was.
I do. Thank you. I'll see you in just a
Okay.
minute.
Thank you, guys.
See you on the other side.
Okay, thank you very much, especially you.
Ladies
Ms.
and
Drakeland.
gentlemen, we certainly appreciate it.
I was looking up on the Zoom and identifying people that are with us, obviously us, Eric Olson, Haley, Chantel, and Jacob Smith. Jacob, that name doesn't ring a bell. Would you mind introducing yourself, please?
They just dropped out.
Okay. Well, chased him away. Okay, we're back in the regular session. And I believe that we have a motion that is ready to be made.
Yes, I'll make it. Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Delwyne Trefz as Administrator of Soil and Water Conservation Commission pending the acceptance of the offer letter to be drafted by staff.
Okay, motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Ms. Pratt. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, now, based on what Haley has told us, yes, we had to come back in a public meeting to announce this. But we don't want any press releases for just a little while. We want, hey, Crystal's gonna work with Haley because the other applicants, we want them to get a letter that's more personal.
Correct.
Than just the form letter, okay? And so, and we'll come out with the press release. We want to come out afterwards,
After
okay?
they've
Does
had
that
a
make
chance.
sense to people? You can go around for a day or two and kind of hide, but it'll probably the first of the week, we'll make a big ado out of this. And we want to do that, but we want to make sure this kind of falls in line, okay? So behind the scenes, people, just smile and say, I've got a secret, and I'll tell you Monday or Tuesday, okay? Now, I'm just gonna throw out something. Delwyne, congratulations. You've got a lot of good comments and thoughts and things. We'll need to probably work a little bit harder. And I think this has been our downfall in the past. And I even brought that up today. We all need to work just a little bit harder on our legislative side. Now, you have a good ear. You got a couple people over here too that got a good ear to our districts. Our districts can help us a lot. There's a few people around that kind of active. And we can sure use a little help down there. But I still say, and I'll make the clear comment, I made it clear earlier, we need to talk to those people head on, especially ones that, like Gibbon and Harris, that find out what their problems and questions they got, but we can open up a great avenue of communication that we're eligible to do. We're just informing them of what we're doing and if you have any questions. And we can try to get those people in their area even to try to budge them this little bit. Because sometimes the worst flow can make the best advocate. And we've got to look at it from that standpoint.
I 100% agree. We've been over here in our little silo.
Yeah.
And
we got a pretty good friend. I really firmly believe in Kaufman. She's your connection with Kaufman right there.
Yeah.
And Bert.
Yeah.
Bert Shaw.
He really came through well for us, and we need to. We say him thank you, but we need to make sure that we do it again and visit with him. And there's some other people. Now, there's some people I can make comment to. I wouldn't waste my time a day to say hello to, but they're enough trouble of their own. But there's some really good people out there I think will help us.
But I think, Delwyne, based on what you said to me on one-on-one conversation, when you've talked about it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
So you understand that. Now it's your opportunity to put that into action. And I know you really believe that. Yeah. So
I can't, basically at a loss for words. It's been an honor to serve as the interim. It really has. And it's been it's all such a growth process. And I appreciate it.
I'll tell you who should be crying. It should be us, because this whole process has not been an easy process. Okay, just take my word for it.
Well, and in my report, when I mentioned the communication, the email that I sent to the legislators, I assumed, I made an assumption which I was incorrect to do that. But also another reality is it's hard being an interim because everybody knows you're just an interim.
Right.
So whatever. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited about it, and I'm so fortunate to have the staff that we have.
There's a lot of staff that like you. I don't know how much you pay them.
Oh no.
How much you pay them?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just appreciate it more than I can say, and you guys didn't make it easy. This has been kind of a long, drawn-out process, but I appreciate two things. One thing, I really appreciate that you guys did take the time and be thoughtful about it. And right out of the box, what I want to say to you guys, what I want to encourage to you commissioners to do is get to know our field staff people. Never feel, and my staff will know that too, that there can't be communication between you guys. That's really important. And that, yes, and so, and not only that, but when it comes time for me to be evaluated, don't just ask me how I did. Ask my staff, ask our partners, ask our
well, they'll tell us.
Okay, all right. That's just, I'm looking forward to it, and just thanks a lot.
Okay.
Good job, Delwyne.
Yeah.
Well,
you've earned it.
I think we'll adjourn.
Yeah, let's adjourn.